Asante sana. Tukiwa tumesimama hivyo, sijui kama Askofu Wanderi amefika. Ningependa nimwalike viti zile za askofu ziwekwe tayari. Askofu, tutaenda tu hivyo, tumeenda kwa sababu ya wakati. Nitamwalika askofu ili aweze kuja tufungulie kwa maombi, alafu kisha baadaye tutaendelea. Askofu, tafadhali karibu sana. Tabaki kama tumesimama hivyo hivyo ili askofu atuongoze kwa maombi, alafu kisha baadaye tutaendelea.
Asante. Bwana apewe sifa. Si basi kila mmoja kwa heshima tu tuinue mikono yetu, hata kama ni mkono mmoja, tuseme baraka kwa siku hii ya leo. Baba, katika jina la Yesu Kristo, tumenyamaza mbele zako kwa sababu neno lako linasema kwenye kile kitabu cha Yohana sura ya 3 na mstari wa 27, hakuna kitu chochote kinaweza kikakuja kwa mwanadamu kama hakije toka mbinguni. Na sasa Mungu wa Israeli Bwana, tuko katika hafla hii ambayo imetayarishwa na His Excellency Dr. Nyoro, ambaye ni kiongozi wetu katika kaunti kuu hii ya Kiambu. Ninaomba Mungu wa Israeli Bwana, tunapoanza hafla hii ukae pamoja nasi, ukatupatie nguvu Mungu wa Israeli Bwana, ukatupatie neema tunapoketi chini na kusikia maono na mambo ambayo umeweka katika moyo wake na katika fikra zake, kuongoza watu wakubwa, watu wadogo, watoto, wamama, wazee, vijana katika kaunti hii. Ninaomba Mungu wa Israeli Bwana, pia vile vile nikimweka mbele zako gavana wetu pamoja na viongozi wake wote, ya kwamba Bwana utawaneemesha hata katika zile siku 38 ambao zimesalia tuingie kwa uchaguzi. Ninaomba ya kwamba Bwana, kibali kisicho cha kawaida juu ya maisha yake katika jina la Yesu Kristo. Naomba ya kwamba Bwana, jamii yake mzima ukazidi kuwabarikia afya katika jina la Yesu Kristo. Ukategulia mitego ya kila aina katika jina la Yesu Kristo. Tunakusihi Mfalme, wewe uliye Mungu, tunaomba ya kwamba Bwana ukamjalie neema. Asante Mungu wa Israeli Bwana kwa ushindani mkubwa ambao uko katika Kiambu County. Bali tunaomba ya kwamba Bwana ukamwezeshe, ukampatie nguvu, utukufu Bwana, na sifa zitakurudia. Nasi Bwana tunaomba katika hafla hii katupatie furaha, katupatie Bwana subira na kuketi na kusikiza yale yote ambao Bwana umeweka katika moyo wake. Utukuzwe Bwana na uheshimiwe daima, na ni katika jina safi la Yesu tumeomba na kuamini. Amen, amen. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you very much. Tumpigie askofu makofi. Asante sana. Tunaweza keti kwa sasa. Kabla hatujakuwa settled kabisa. Unajua hafla haikui hafla bila wimbo moja. Your Excellency, with your permission, I know time has pressed us, but I would like DJ you be prepared. Tuko na Shiro wa GP atafanya wimbo moja peke yake. Shiro wa GP atafanya wimbo moja peke yake ili tukue tunaanza ratiba jinsi ambavyo imepangwa. Shiro wa GP, karibu. Tupigie Shiro wa GP makofi. Asante anapokaribia ili atupe wimbo moja peke yake. I hope DJ you are ready. Manake after this tunaenda mbio because of time. So Charles, mkuwe tayari ili tukimbie kukimbia.
Sawa sawa. Bwana asifiwe. Tusalimiane kwa mkono. Hallelujah. Nataka tuanze vizuri, kwa hivyo lazima tuamke. Simama tu na miguu yako. Tumsifu Bwana tunapoanza hii ibada ya siku ya leo, na najua tutashukuru Mungu pamoja, maana yeye ni Mungu.
Alright, wapi makofi ya Shiro wa GP. Thank you very much. We may be seated at this junction now. I'd like to, as we move on, Your Excellency the Governor, karibu sana. Ningependa sasa niwaletee my co-MC, Sheila Mwanyiga. Makofi kwa Sheila Mwanyiga. Takuwa akiendelea from here as we move on. Asanteni sana na karibuni sana.
Adoakia mbu wego dederaitwa Sheila Mwanyiga na ndederakena mono kwa haha mwe hau twe haha twe together au sio? Mami ni Mugikuyu, baba ni Mutaita, Morogoro ni Kenya. Atia nejega Nidarauga jega. How are you doing, Kiambu? Ebu niwaone tafadhali, tusalimiane na mikono. Nimependa sana, nimefurahi sana kwa hapa na nyinyi. It gives me such great pleasure to be here. Kimombo ndio nilifundishwa, mimi sikusindikiza watu shule, so mtanikubalisha tafadhali leo nizungumze na kile lugha mnajua. Au daje? Si watu wa Kiambu wanajua Kizungu? Mulienda shule pia? Hamkusindikiza watu pia, au sio? Excellent. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is a wonderful honor and a pleasure to be here in county number 22, Kiambu County, as we unveil His Excellency Honorable Dr. James Nyoro's manifesto. We're so glad, tumefurahi sana, you have made the time to be here with us for the Kiambu we want. The Kiambu? The Kiambu? We want it when? We can even start now. Sindio? Now, Kiambu County is a powerful contributor to Kenya's economy. Na mnajua, over the past 2 years, you have undergone significant transformation in health, in roads and infrastructure, maji, human resources, and the agricultural sector. And more success awaits this wonderful county with the stewardship of His Excellency Honorable Dr. James Nyoro, a leader with a proven track record for forging partnerships, who alongside other national visionaries was instrumental in developing Kenya's Vision 2030. And he has diligently brought his knowledge, the depth of it all, as a world-renowned agricultural economist to the county of Kiambu while serving as governor. Hebu tumpe makofi hapo kidogo. Kazi kubwa wamefanya. But today, we would like to hear directly from the governor. So I'm not going to sema mambo mengi mengine. I'm going to request that you join me in giving him a big round of applause as he makes his way to the stage with his opening remarks. Tafadhali, let's hear it for incoming and current as well, sijasahau. Let's hear it for His Excellency Dr. James Nyoro as he makes his way up to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. We may all be seated. May all be seated. And those at the back, you can also get seated if you can. I'm talking about the wale wanasema Nyoro tano fresh. Hamtakaa chini. Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish to recognize the presence of quite a number of people here. First and foremost, let me recognize the presence of our peers for transport, and at the same time PS for water, Dr. Engineer Njoroge, he's there. Let's give him a round of applause. We have our PS for tourism, Zainabu, you know her, she's also there with us. Thank you very much. Let me also appreciate the presence of two of our most important candidates, Mr. George Mara, who is the candidate for senator position in Kiambu County. Give him a loud applause. Let me also recognize the presence of Madam Shania, who is the candidate for Women Rep. And also let me recognize the presence of my running mate, June Jambi Wawero. You know, I was telling her that since we started the campaign, we've been calling her June, and now that today we are in July, I don't know whether we are going to change that name, but she still remains June. Let me also recognize the presence of my wife, Sarah Karanja. She's there. Together with that, I have a number of my family members. We normally like to remain incognito. So I'll ask them to start. Nobody will know who is who. Other family members, please stand. Don't say your name, just stand. Thank you, thank you. Those are members of my family. You can assume that they are all my sons and daughters. Let me also appreciate a number of candidates, colleagues who are contesting in this election. I know they are all here. Chief officers, tafadhali, and directors. Directors, thank you very much. That's the people that we've been working together with. You may take your seats. Let me not continue because I'm told we are squeezed for time. I have a number of colleagues and friends who are here, and I really would want to appreciate your being here. I want to go very quickly and say the reason we are here today, like no other time, we are here to take stock of a county that God has given us. Take stock of where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going. And more particularly, it will be important for us to consider that we are going to have a covenant between me, my DG, the leadership of the county, with the people of Kiambu. And as you are going to see, like never before, we want to present a covenant whose accountability and transparency will be held by Kiambu people. And that is why we are today. I don't want to call it a manifesto. I want to call it a covenant because it's an agreement between us and people of Kiambu. I'll be very quick in giving the intro because I think we can always have the intro whenever we want. But I want to say that we probably don't know the county that we live in. This is a very, very, very rich county. God has given us, as they say, land full of honey, milk and honey. We have 12 sub-counties, and you all know, I'm preaching to the choir, with 60 wards and several hundred villages, with a total population of, according to 2019 census, 2.4 million, which is projected to increase to 2.8 million by this year, by the end of this year. By 2030, we shall be 4.1 million. And if that projection goes, by 2040, we shall be 6-point-something million people. As you can see, our population growth rate is extremely high, contributed by, among other things, people wanting to come and live in Kiambu, and not necessarily the fact that they've been born in Kiambu. Half of that population are young, at the age of 18 to 35. More or less about 65% of that population. And that is the population that is supposed to take over the management of the county so that they can take care of the 35 that is aged. It is one of the fastest metropolis, being next to Nairobi. You know, we are just about 5, but we are one of the biggest and the fastest. We are said to contribute about 6% of Kenya's GDP, and being the second county to do that, because the first one is Nairobi. But much more importantly, you have to consider is that whereas most other counties, except the cities, the 4 or 5 cities, the majority of our people are living in urban centers. 60% of our population lives in urban centers. Only 40%, as it were, lives in rural areas. Now, that comes in with its own challenges and it comes in with its own opportunities. And we'll look at that as we continue. Now, to give you an example, if 60% of the 2.8 million are living in urban centers, then you have to think about garbage collection. Now, traditionally, if you're living in the rural area, all you do is you put your garbage in. But if you are living in an urban center, you have to have a modern way of collecting your garbage. So we have special challenges as a county. We are very well endowed, and I can tell you, God has blessed Kiambu. If you are coming from Rari, Rimuru, Kiambu comes down from top, adulating to the middle, where we are now, where we do coffee, tea, and mainly coffee daily, and then it goes down to Gatuanyaga, Goliva, and so on. Now, there's a merit for that. With different agroecological zones, there is nothing that you cannot grow in Kiambu. All the way from grapes, you can do coffee, you can do tea, you can do sorghum, because God did not give us one flat land. He gave us land that adulates from high altitude to low altitude. Now, that comes with its own challenge. If you are looking at maize variety, the variety that will grow in Goliva is not the variety that will grow in Rari. And that is where we have gone wrong. And probably that is where we are food insecure. Do you know, we may have a very high per capita income, estimated at over 230,000, whatever per capita income is. All it means is that all our money, if it was liquidated, all our assets, and we divide, you would go home with 230,000 shillings. I know quite a number of you would wish that we do that so that you can take 230,000 shillings. What I want to tell you is that that is in the hearts of a few. We still have quite a number of people who are living below poverty line. About a quarter of our population are living below poverty line, which means that we have to address the poor even as we look at the rich. You don't penalize the rich so that you get to the poor. You deal with the rich so that they can reach out to the poor. Otherwise, then you kill the geese that lays the golden egg. I can go on and on and on and tell you the kind of county that you are, but I want you to agree that God has given us a very, very, very prosperous and potential county where each one of us should never, never cry that you don't have a job. I have not said that about 25% of our population live with probably no meal or a meal a day. So despite the fact that we are the biggest producer of coffee, tea, we have some of the biggest agro-based industries like Bidco, like Broadways, like Tattoo City here, like Brookside, like the Gori Dairy. Despite all of that, about a quarter of our people live without a meal. Probably without a meal, or they get a meal a day. And these are challenges that we have to live with. Of course, we are close to Nairobi. Our close proximity to Nairobi is both a blessing and a curse at the same time. I keep on saying that Kiambu is probably the only county where if an egg is laid, before it cools down, it is eaten in Nairobi. But it is also a county that suffers from insecurity that spans from Nairobi. So there are those positive and negative aspects of it. But having said that, let me say that over the last 9 years, if we were keen in utilizing the resources that God has given us, this county would have been different. Before devolution, the per capita income was extremely high. Of course, coffee and tea was booming. But unfortunately, devolution has seen us not deliver what otherwise was supposed to have been delivered through the kind of money that comes from the treasury. And therefore, that coupled with mismanagement, coupled with lack of transparency and accountability, coupled with steering right, left, center, we found ourselves in a situation where a governor was impeached. And I want to remind Kiambu people, because I keep on getting this question. Because Kibe Mungai knows that we have quite a number of cases that are pending in court, because we challenged the Constitution. Because the Constitution had emphasized that the only time when the governor will not be there is when the governor is on safari. And therefore, the deputy governor was totally helpless. That's a section of the Constitution. And therefore, nobody anticipated the situation we found ourselves in 2019. And for 6 months, I was running a county without authority because the Constitution did not allow me to do that. Luckily enough, and we thank all the people, the patriots of Kiambu, on 31st of January 2020, I was sworn in as the third governor of this county. And therefore today, you can say we've been together for about 2 years and probably 4 months. And within that period, and when we were sworn in, we found a number of constraints that are important to consider, because what I'll go through is I'll tell you the kind of constraints that we found. I'll then tell you, when we looked at those constraints, what did we pledge to Kiambu people to do? And then what did we do? What have we done in order to address those pledges? I then say, even if we have addressed all those challenges and all, to meet the pledges, notwithstanding, there are still a number of challenges ahead of us. And my promise, my covenant, is how we tackle those challenges. So as it were, if I was a pastor, I would say those are the 3 things that are 4 things that I'm going to look at. We found a county, as I said, that was entirely corrupt, total lack of transparency. Systems were totally abused because, if you want to steal a goat from your neighbor, what you do is that at night you cut the wire, the barbed wire, and then you can go in and steal the goat. So there were systems that were mismanaged and were manipulated so that could allow the kind of things that we found. We found an extremely huge debt. I don't know whether Kiambu people know, and I was laughing the other day when Laikipia floated our infrastructure board and they went through credit rating, and I was saying if we were to go through credit rating, we would probably not be rated properly. Besides the fact that the first governor accumulated a pending bill of 2.5 billion shillings, the second governor, within a span of 2 years, accumulated pending bills of 3 billion shillings. So as it were, our pending bills total is 5.2 billion. Within the last 24 months or so, we've been able to clear 1.4 billion. But that is with a lot of sweat. So, hugely indebted county. We found a payroll that is to a large extent over 42% of our budget. So if you get money and you have to spend 42%, and the requirement is that you only spend 35%, then how do you bring that down? That is the county we found. In 1 year, in the transition between 2015, around 2016 as we entered to 2017, over 2,000 people were employed, bringing the staff component from 5,000 employees to 7,000. So that's the kind of county that we found. We found a number of stalled projects. Indeed, most of the projects that were started, I would say this very clearly, were not started because there were good intentions of starting the projects. And we want to look at them. Look at the hospital projects. There were 4 hospital projects that have been started since 2015. We had Rari, which is still going on today. We had Tigoni, we had Wangige, and we had Thogoto. Those hospital projects were started in 2015. But after the initial payment for whatever purpose, nothing continued. We found most of those projects at about 20% completion, whereas some people had been paid over 25%. So you are paying 25% for a project that is up to 20%. Many stalled projects, road projects, we all know. People who from Thogoto know Thogoto Daire Road. From Githunguri, you know Githieko Road. From Juja, you know. So we found stalled projects, quite a number of them across the board. ECDs were started, and today, even up to today, the children have not occupied those ECDs. We also found some interesting things. Whereas we are interested in investing in water, and I'll come to water later on, we found a situation that was very interesting. where we had drilled over 130 boreholes without installing them. So the job here is to drill and maybe make money through drilling, but don't install a pump, don't install a pump. Now that's the kind of county that we found. And I can go on and on and on. Having looked at that, 1 month later, 13th of March, COVID came in. And the first commitment that we did was to make sure that we save our people. So I pledged to restore not only the glory of the county, but I made sure that I'm providing for health services to make sure that our people do not die. And I'll come to that later on. We also wanted to support our farmers. We came in and we found that there was no budget, zero budget to agriculture. That's probably because it is less attractive to invest in agriculture than to invest in Amulika Mwizi. From a distance, if you invest in Amulika Mwizi, and if you are running for governor, you can say, ile ni mimi niliweka. But you invest in agriculture and people are looking healthier and whatever, and their stomachs are full, you can't say those stomachs are full because of me. So traditionally, we found that it is difficult and almost impossible to invest in agriculture, and we had to do something, we had to pledge to do something in agriculture. Our water connectivity, as I said, God has blessed us. We are coming from top to the middle, down, which means our rivers are flowing from top. But our water connectivity was, even now still remains slow. So I pledged to make sure that we not only work on those boreholes, but we increase connectivity, water connectivity to our people. And that has a meaning, because women in areas where we have connected water were waking up at 3, only to come back at about 4 with 1 mutungi of water. Girls were not going to school. Our roads were totally dilapidated. And those that were constructed as if it was a joke. And we made a commitment that we are going to construct a minimum of 4 kilometers in every ward within 2 years. I will tell you what we have done. We have done more than that. We found those stored projects, and immediately I took over. I started working on the stored projects, all of them, both the hospitals and the roads and so on. And luckily enough, I had pumped in enough money in Tigoni. So by the time COVID broke, I had already completed the tower. And therefore, we had reasons to make Tigoni a COVID center, the only county that ever committed one hospital to become a COVID center. You know what it means if you talk to the medics? You know what it means is that when people are having an epidemic like COVID, you restrict them to one area so that even if there is cross infection, it is only in one area. But if you scatter them in all the hospitals, in the 3 level 5 hospitals, then the incidence of infection would have been higher. So it cost us much to do that hospital, but it was a decision that we were to do. And therefore, we also made commitment to look at trade. Most of the markets were not done. Githurai had not been started. There was push and pull, and we committed to do a number of things. And that is the pledge. And many other issues to do with staff. The staff morale was bad. Instituting new financial systems, checks and balances, and so on and so forth. So what did we do? As I said, the first thing that we did was to make sure that we contain COVID. We did this by ensuring that we complete and start operating Tigoni and Wagi Hospital with a total bed capacity, the 2 hospitals with a total bed capacity of 500. But we more particularly concentrated on Tigoni. From 54 beds, we installed 300 beds. We installed a 6-ton oxygen tank. We installed rotary equipment. And we installed 30 incubators. I know some may not know what incubators are, but for the children who are born prematurely, they spend their time in nursery, as it were, the incubators. We also started 4 other hospitals. We could not, unfortunately, start the construction of the water hospital, because by the time we got there, we realized that the contractor was asking us for more money than he had spent. And part of the money that he had spent without receipts, you know what that means? He wanted us to pay him. And we didn't, so he went to court. and we've been in court until now when the hospital has been released to us. And that happened across the road. There are quite a number of roads that had been given out, and I want to tell people at the Degwa here, because I was there the other day, the road from Kiambu Road to Witsa was among those roads that were allocated to a contractor without a budget. And yet, they had given 10%, I don't know for what, without a down payment. So we continue to do the construction of the other 4 hospitals that are coming up in place, Githunguri, with a capacity of 300 beds. We know we have been issues with Githunguri, Bibirioni, Rally Level 4, which is now complete. They are painting the outside, Rusegate, and Igegani Hospital. We increased our ICU bed capacity from 8 in Thika to 54. In Tigoni, there is ICU bed capacity of 14 because you know COVID required that you have ICU facilities. So our ICU capacity, including Kiambu here, is 54 beds and going up. We installed cleaning and laundry equipment. Prior to that, the linen was washed, hard washed. And you can imagine, if you are the one washing the linen from the hospital, from patients whose disease you did not know whether they died or they didn't, then what happens is that the cleaner then got sick. So we have installed laundry and drying equipment in our level 3 hospitals and 2 level 4 hospitals. We upgraded Gatundu Hospital from level 5 to level 6 by entering an agreement with Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. What that means is that you can see the infrastructural change that there is in that hospital. There was an old wing with a bed capacity of 200. We are now putting up a new wing with another bed capacity of 200. We have one of the biggest COVID-19 testing unit, and we have one of the biggest conclave, or whatever they call it, where you burn medical waste. I don't know whether you know, but medical waste is a source of many diseases. Now we can be able to burn all the medical waste for the whole county within 3 days for the whole county, provided we can be able to transport it there, and that is Gatundu. There was a bit of myth that Gatundu is going to be taken over and become a referral hospital, and I made it very clear that it is a level 6 and it is a hospital accessible to Gatundu and Kiambu people. We have increased health personnel by 500. These are mainly doctors, clinical officers, and nurses, all through the COVID center. What it means is that, of course, to make matters worse, we increased the wage rate, but we needed that. What is so important about health, and I want to finish on health about that, is that we did not have a central medical store. So when we buy drugs from Meds or from KEMSA, they were taken directly to the facilities. So you could get one facility with excess of drugs, whereas the neighboring facility did not have any. So we have now put up a central medical store in Ruiru. It's almost complete. It shall be installed with hospital information management system that will be connected with all the hospitals, and we shall be able to know which facility is running out of drugs, and you can cross-transfer from one facility to another because all of that can be managed through the hospital management system. On agriculture, I told you, we found that there was zero budget. We have now improved the budget for agriculture up to 1.2 billion shillings per year. We have supplied seed and fertilizer to 180,000 farmers over the last 2 years. We have also started a new extension method that we call village-based advisory method, where we teach farmers to become the trainers of their neighbors. Over that, and I know there may be VBAs here, we call them, part of that is that VBAs become entrepreneurs because they are the ones who are passing on the technology, including seed and fertilizer and chicken, to the farmers. And we have connected the VBAs to an organization that has given them interest-free credit so that they can become entrepreneurs. So you are not only an entrepreneur, but also you are extending the information to farmers on how to do agriculture. So far we have 1,000 VBAs reaching out to 300,000 farmers. Our intention is to do 3 times that. We have supported our dairy. We have 23 dairy cooperatives outside the key ones that we are proud of: Githunguri, Duberi, and now Mangu Progressive, together with Remuru. We want Remuru and Mangu Progressive to be the next Githunguri dairy. Those from Githunguri know very well that the turnover for Githunguri dairy is 8 billion, shared among 14,000 farmers. You can do your math. A farmer, an ordinary farmer in Githunguri, is making between 400 and 600,000 shillings every year. If we can be able to do that for Mangu Progressive, do it for Remuru, do it for Duberi, and do it for a couple of others, 23, that we have supplied coolers and pasteurizers, then we can turn over the wealth of our county. Because dairy, from dairy, you get dairy income. Now, Shira, you have to tell me which is dairy and which is dairy. You know, as a Kikuyu, I mean one with R and the other one with R. These are problems that you face. So we want, we are the biggest producer of milk in the country, producing about 354 million liters. We are now at the level of 370, and we want to reach 400. And the 23 small cooperatives, our purpose and objective is to make sure that we centrally process our milk, and we have a brand, a Kiabu brand, that we are selling. I have to move faster on water. As I said, we had all these problems, but I'm happy to say that we have so far connected 170,000 households with water. Areas that never saw a drop of water except when it was raining, today can access water. People in Goriba, they are getting water straight from the Wasco, the Kaliva next to Chania Falls. People in Deya, we have moved water 11 kilometers from Mondiri to Deya. We have moved water from Rari, Roromo, through Mutarakwa all the way. You can talk about Githurai. It's an area where there was no water at all. We have an 8-inch pipe that is transporting water from Jacaranda down through Kahawasukari, Kahawendani, Mwiki, and all the way to Mwihoko and Kyo. We have put in a reservoir of a capacity of 23 million liters at Jacaranda, awaiting the completion of Karimeno Dam. What does that mean? Ujipange au upangwe. Tumejipanga so that by the time Karimeno is full, the first place to be filled with water is Jacaranda, and we will have water coming to Roiro all the way to Kyo and Githurai. And that is what we have planned on water. There, we can continue to talk on about water. But one other thing we have done, and thank you PS for helping us to do this, is to do a water master plan. We have water master plan for every single sub-county. For instance, today we were in Kiambaa. We know very well that Kiambaa requires 600 million in order to move from 70. Can you imagine that water connectivity in Kiambaa is 17%, 17. So 83% of the population can hardly access water on a daily basis. In Kiambaa, we are not talking about Deya. But we have a master plan for it, and we've discussed. Together with that, and with the help again of the PS, we have done a hydrological survey that has shown us that God has blessed us with reservoirs full of water. We can continue to put in another 3 or 4 boreholes in Ondiri without drying the swamp and without affecting the other boreholes. We can put 10 more boreholes in Roromo, and yesterday I was discussing with people from Rari to make sure that they benefit from Roromo and from Fadi. We have a huge water catchment called Lionderi. We have many water projects. We want to capture, again, Karimeno water at Kalibaribi next to Merehill so that we can supply the whole of Thika. Today, Thika can only produce 29,000 cubic meters of water or cubic liters of water. But we are working with Danida and the World Bank to double that to 54,000, so that the whole of Thika, including Kisii, including Kameno, all the way you can have adequate water. It requires a plan, it requires a covenant. I don't want to talk about trade because you all have known that we completed, with the help of the national government, His Excellency the President, we completed 5 markets. And you have seen those markets all the way from Kikuyu to, we are just about now to start Githurai market. And in addition to that, we have started other sheds. I'm happy to tell you that in another 3 or 4 weeks, we shall have completed Gitaru, we have Kegumo, we have quite a number of them. We have Kimende, a number of them that are coming up, so that our traders can work in a conducive environment, whether it is cold or rainy or shiny or whatever. Housing. There are various issues that we have done on housing. But the most important one is to create space so that we can do 2,000 affordable housing. That is in the plan. We also know that developers have been going through problems, and particularly because of approval and the corruption that goes with it. I want to report to you that we are moving out of the old traditional e-dams. That is a system that you upload your construction plan, and we found that it was violated, it was hacked, people were entering in, paying money, but the money was not coming to us. So now you are experiencing a bit of slowness because we are moving from that system, which has been manipulated to be misused, into another system, and it is going to be decentralized to wards. I may want to reduce this and talk about education and social services. I think the most important thing is our children. You all know that when the first place that our children encounters a school or a teacher is at ECD. We have found that most of our ECDs are dilapidated. They are afterthoughts. You have a very good primary school because the MP may have a CDF, but you have a very poor ECD. We have started a process of modern ECDs, and I am happy that we have 2 modern ECDs. One is in Murera. That one in Murera has not only the classroom, it has a resting room where kids will probably take a nap. We have toilet facilities, modern toilet facilities, differentiated, including for people living with disabilities. We have 5 standard ECDs. We have a whole program on working on ECDs. And together with that, we have a whole program on working to improve the welfare of the teachers. We have converted all our teachers who are paid a stipend of 8,000 shillings to permanent and pensionable staff, and I hope some of them are here, who now can access medical, and they can access, because that is the point. Mtoto kama atakutana na mwalimu at that point, anaasikie shule ni mbaya, that child will never get to standard 1, they will never get to the university. So that is the starting point, we need to work on it. I think I have talked about all of that, and I will say as an economist that the things that we have done, and the things that I have told you are what we can call necessary, but not sufficient. You can have a good road. You can have health facilities. You probably did not die of COVID, but you don't have money in your pocket. And the most important thing for us Kiambu people is to enter into an agreement that we are going to have money in people's pocket. As you probably see, we started off with agriculture, the food security that I talked about, providing seeds to our farmers. We have worked with coffee farmers. They have formed an association, and we have bought fertilizer for them. Our agreement is that we should establish our counter mill, and then we should be selling our coffee as a Kiambu County brand. I know, for instance, that there are buyers currently in the country from Korea, but they could not come to Kiambu because we are not meeting our coffee centrally, and we have not created a Kiambu brand. On dairy, I have told you the plan. So essentially, the 40% living in rural areas must make sure that we improve on our agriculture. Those who are living in peri-urban, we have peri-urban agriculture, and I'm talking about areas such as Roiro, in Githurai, areas such as Odero, Kino, and those surrounding areas where land is limited, but you can be able to do chicken, you can be able to do pork or pigs, and you can be able to do some of those fast moving, including greenhouses. That is where we start. That is the starting point. But then you come to the most important. This is doing business, because we are known for being entrepreneurs. And through that, we've realized the disadvantage that we have as a county is that people start business without knowing the kind of business you want to enter into. And I've always given this example, that a lady is working in a salon, but because 3, 5, 10, out of 10 customers who come to that salon, 5 always say, Nataka Rebecca. After Rebecca sees that she's in high demand, the next thing is to jump 3 shops and establish another salon there, without knowing what the technicalities of doing a salon is, without even knowing the basic equipment. So what we've done is to get you into a 3 or 4 day training, which we call business development service, so that we can teach you the business you want to enter into. We have people who have specialized on salons. We have people who have specialized on hardware. People who have specialized on all kinds of business. So they will show you, then they will show you how to keep your accounts. And they will show you how to obey and follow all the rules and regulations, because you are supposed to register NHIF and so on. And then after that, we have introduced a fund that we are calling Jinue. Jinue means simply lift yourself up. What does it mean? You know, traditionally, and I want us to get this very clearly, traditionally, you have all these funds called Biashara Fund or whatever it is called, where you are dedicating 100 million, and then you choose who to give, and then you run down the fund, and you have to pump in another 100, and the criteria of the people you have given is not known, and even the repayment is 0. Kwa sababu ni pesa ya umma. Now, we innovatively thought that if you get that 100 million, and we have gotten initially 138 million, put it in a bank and tell the bank, keep this money in a deposit. What you do is assess the people I'm sending to you, give them a facility, a working capital facility, ranging from 20,000 to 5 million. We will teach them to do the business that they are doing. We as Kiambu County will pay 50% of the interest, so you only pay 50%. We are your security. You should not be asked to bring a log book or be asked to bring a title or anything. We are your security. And that is why we need this team to come and visit you, so that they can look at your targets and say, if you go this way, you probably will not make it. Because if you don't make it, then we lose. Because the bank will fall back on the money that you have given. Now, the arrangement today with the banks and with a number of development partners is that we should be able to leverage. Now we are leveraging 1.3 billion shillings. The arrangement is that we should be able to leverage 5 billion shillings, and a number of development partners and philanthropic organizations, some of whom we have worked with, are telling us, if it is going to be successful at 1.3, we will help you to bring the interest rate from 7 to 3. So we are getting to a point, my fellow residents, we are getting to a point where you may be able to get, you'll be able to get this facility at almost 0 interest rate, and your work is just to pay the principal. Now, that is what we call economic empowerment. Now, if you look at the category of people, I've been telling our young people that they are called Jeshi, but whoever calls you Jeshi, you are Jeshi without a gun. The gun I'm giving you is the access to that finance, and then we organize groups so that we can start trading. And I keep on giving an example. If we have organized groups, and a group, particularly I'm very passionate about the young mothers, you know, and I know if I ask Masingos mko wapi, Masingos, yeah, you know, these are very important people, and when I come to the promise, I'll talk about them. Now, these are people we can organize. It's not that we are encouraging others to become singles. But these are people we can organize so that they can become traders. What is wrong with them getting a canton, going all the way to Mwea, buying the rice, and they come selling Thika, Ruiru, Kiambu, wherever, them together. Others go to Rari and buy some cabbages and onions and whatever and take it to Mombasa, sell in Mombasa and come up with mangoes. Now, these are the kind of groups and arrangements that we need to do so that we can create jobs for our people. I want to add this by saying, despite that, despite the things that we've done, we continue to face a number of challenges. And very quickly, I'll just mention them because those are the challenges on which my promise is going to be based. On health, we are still congested. We still get about 30% of our patients coming from Nairobi. If you go to Kiambu Hospital here, the maternity ward is full. Probably 40 or 45% of those patients are from Nairobi. We will not ask them. We will not refuse to admit them. We continue to face lack of modern equipment. If you go to our hospital, the doctor is there, but unfortunately, the doctor may send you out for a CT scan or for an X-ray or MRI or dialysis. That's a challenge, and in my promise, I'll show you how we are going to tackle that. I don't know whether you know that one of the biggest problems that we are grappling with is Central Kenya, and us here in Kiambu, because I can only talk about Kiambu, is the high incidence of what is referred to as non-communicable diseases. These are lifestyle diseases, they call them, but they are not lifestyle because people who are suffering have no life at all and they have no style. These are diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and to some extent cancer. Now what is happening is that if you go to any hospital and you count the number of patients who have come to the hospital with NCDs, you realize that they are probably 40 or 50 or 60%. So what do we do to decongest our hospitals from NCD patients? That's a challenge. We have a challenge in water, I talked about it. We still have challenge in agriculture. We've challenge in trade. We have a challenge in urbanization and housing. That's a major one, 60% of our population living in rural areas, in urban centers. We have 5 municipalities, but that was based on 2009 population census. We have now requested under the Urbans and Cities Act that we add another 6 municipalities. If you look at Ruiru Road with a population of 800,000, we have proposed that we have Ruiru and Githurai as 2 municipalities. We have suggested that we separate we separate Kabete and Kikuyu so that each one of them can be a municipality on its own. We have suggested that Githunguri becomes a municipality. In fact, people from Githunguri, when they see Kiambu town and see how Kiambu has developed, they say, why are we not like Kiambu? It is because you are not a municipality, you are not benefiting from resources that come to municipality, but now you have suggested that you become a municipality. We are also looking at a new way of investing in our urban centers, and we'll talk about that when I look at the promise. We need to become the next destination for investment. You knew very well that there was a time that Thika was referred as the Birmingham of Kenya. We had all kinds of textile, hides and skin, Del Monte, and all kinds of factories. But because of some reasons, and including mismanagement and corruption, we started getting factories going to Kitengela and Athi River. What is this that we are going to do to make sure that we create a conducive environment and industry start coming back to Thika? You can say we have no space. We have space. We have close to 700 acres that we have secured from Del Monte. And a lot of people have different plans. Our plan is that we make that the next extension of Thika town as we make Thika a city and make it the destination for investment so that people stop going to the crowded Kitengela and all the way to the river and they can come to Kiambu. We'll talk about education. We have a major issue in education, particularly in terms of, as I said, the infrastructure, but also the transition rate. We may be good people. We may have all the things I talked about, but our children are not going to the best schools, although we also host some of the best schools. And we need to lobby and advocate Because when you have your child who is admitted in a school somewhere, or not mentioned because we are on air, and you know very well that that child will not go there for several reasons. First of all, the fare is as much as you pay the fees. So what you do is you lose that national position, it's taken up by somebody else, and your child will go to a lower school. And we keep quiet. We have to be able to lobby and advocate for education. We'll look at roads and talk about the things that we have to do on roads. We have some very innovative ways of doing roads. That is the county that you have. That is the county that I found. That is the county that I pledged to do certain things. And that is the county that I have done some of those things that you see across the board within 2 years, with all the constraints. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that the future belongs to the organized. The covenant that I'm going to discuss with you is what is going to take us to the next level. It's what is going to move us from being referred to as county number 1, as it is in Kut and North Mombasa, but we are probably county number 47. I want you to remember, before I come to my promise, that Moi told us, siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. Thank you, and God bless you. I was told I pause so that I can come back and tell you what my promise to you people of Kiambu is. Thank you, and God bless.
I think we can give him a bigger round of applause, tafadhali. Thank you very much, Governor Dr. Nyoro. We are wishing you all the very best as you go forward. At the end of any school term, as a student, kurudi nyumbani, you dread your report card. Especially if how to pay attention, you skipped a few classes, you didn't ask the questions. But we would like to take a look at a video that is his report card. We would like you to focus on a screen that's near you. There's this big one here. Kuna nyingine pale. For those who are on that end, mnaweza kutazama pale. There's a video we'd like to show you of the Honorable Governor's scorecard. So, roll.
Agriculture is such an important sector in this country. And what we have done so far is to improve our agriculture budget from 0 to 1.2 billion shillings per year. We have given farmers free seeds and fertilizer. About 300,000 farmers have been reached so far. The environment in which our traders work in, particularly markets, has been a very, very critical area. We have completed 5 high-story markets. We put in some other infrastructure, the boda sheds. We as Kiambu County, we are very lucky because we have access to major roads. So each ward so far has done 4 kilometers. That's 240 kilometers done through the mechanical transport department of the Ministry of Transport. We went ahead and we acquired road construction units. Now, these road construction units was the best innovation that we could have done because so far the road construction unit have done in excess of 300 kilometers. So when we came in 2 years ago, we found that there was so many stalled hospitals that were incomplete, and we embarked on completing those hospitals. We have so far completed 4 level 4 hospitals. We have increased our bed capacity by 1,500 beds. Water provision in Kiambu County has been a big problem. We have sunk in 6 boreholes. The 6 boreholes have been able to provide water, first of all, to Kikuyu town. All the way through Alliance, Maihe, there is adequate water in that region. And it is with that that we are simply saying, Nyoro, Tano, fresh.
Well done. Hebu tumpatie pongezi na hongera.
Well done, Governor. Well done, Kiambu. You are poised for takeoff. Sasa mko runway, au sio? It's like an aeroplane taking off. You're on the runway, mmetoka mbali, lakini bado kuna mbali, tutafika mbali, au sio? And now, please join me in welcoming my co-host this afternoon, a man you know very well. He's going to Ebonjo simame nami so I can become famous.
Asante.
Jenga, tafadhali mpatie a big round of applause.
Asante. Kiambu mko. Tusimame tafadhali. Tusimame. That is not how you such kind of a powerful manifesto. Hivyo sio venye tutaileta ama? Hivyo sio venye tutaileta. Haya, nataka tuanze hapa chini. Peleka chini. Peleka chini, leta. Hapa chini ndio Kiambu ilikuwa kabla aingie, si ndio? Si ilikuwa hapa? Akaingia mwaka ya kwanza. Ikakuja hapa, si ndio? Ikakuja hapa. Akaingia mwaka ya tatu, ikaingia wapi? Rembesha tafadhali. Rembesha tafadhali. Rembesha, tupatie yote. Asante sana. Thank you very much, Sheila. And by the way, Sheila, now that you're in Kiambu, we have officially said you are our daughter, and we shall surely call you Sheila from now onwards. So shall it be, it cannot be otherwise. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We really do appreciate your excellency. I know you have talked about a bit of the things that you have found, the things you have done. We've talked about health, water, agriculture, land. I'd also want just a little bit later to just have a one-on-one and you tell us how you found these things and what is going on. But right now, I'd like to welcome some of the ladies of Kiambu. So as you give us the manifesto, as you present, you called it a covenant. And you see, once you call it a covenant, you have to deliver. It cannot be otherwise. So, DJ, tafadhali, ladies, tafadhali, karibuni.
Nyoro Kiambu Nyoro ke Igai watu heire Nyoro Idiria Kiambu kwaribu Yutati wa mbesa inyanya Kianga maendeleo Ukianga maendeleo Okuma Nyoro ya wabisi Yabuwe kiantia gosentia Unainege neigethira Agwawiro kiruteka Agwawiro kiruteka Yende Nyoro tano fureshi Nyoro tano fureshi Nyoro tano fureshi Nyoro Kiambu Nyoro ke Yeni ugo Ira mwegorone Kumanga bana oya ofisi Aida kami akaire tu Abana Nyoro nidhekio Ira ni uru tete Kiambu Afara na mai Yonare miwe kimboko yao Yonare miwe kimboko yao Ivitare ni utwakile Duo gima wa mwiri Akigero irotigoni Akonge koine no irako Akonge koine no irako
Atia
Nyoro tano fureshi
Atia
Nyoro tano fureshi
Atia
Nyoro tano fureshi Nyoro Kiambu Nyoro ke Vira mwega wakugacirithia mathibitari Gatundundika ona rukuma
Alright, Governor akipewa manifesto sasa. Alright, wapi makofi ya Governor? Thank you very much.
Gavana
Thank you, thank you,
Nyoro
thank you, thank you, thank you. Mike, over to you.
Makofi, makofi tafadhali, makofi tafadhali. Asante, asante. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the covenant that the governor is saying he has with the people of Kiambu. Asante sana, Governor, makofi kwake tafadhali. Round of applause.
Tungionyo Kiambu murenda iga mundu no Nyoro nikio toro iga mundu no Nyoro yona moka na mbeca makunia.
Thank you. Thank you. Governor, I know we are supposed to be doing some of the promises that you have put in there. We would be doing some of the promises, but quickly, maybe you'd like to give us just a little bit of a word as we get a video that will be coming shortly. Very nice. We'll be having one of the videos. Tafadhali tupatie sound, tunaomba.
Kwa hii biashara nimefanya, mashida ile nilikuwa nimepitia ya kukosa. Kwa majina naitwa Laha Joki Mungai. Biashara hii nafanyia Kikuyu ya kuuza viatu na beauty products na handbags. Kwa hii biashara nimefanya, mashida ile nilikuwa nimepitia ya kukosa enough stock. Customer hapati chenye anataka, but by the time nimepata hii funds, nimeweza kuenda kuwaletea stock. Sasa biashara yangu iko na kila kitu. My customers are really enjoying. At least the sales now are good. I can enjoy, and even the customers get whatever they want. Hii GUI funds tulipata kwa njia rahisi sana, because ni kukuja tu anaiangalia business yako, unajaza, hakuna guarantors. So tumeipata kwa njia rahisi sana, hata haikuchukua muda. After 1 week we had our money in our account. Gavana Nyoro, ningetaka kumshukuru sana, hongera kwake, because ameconsider small scale businesses. Yeah, we appreciate so much, and God bless you.
I think as we move on, Your Excellency Karibu, maybe you give us the promises that you have for the people of Kiambu, even as you have a covenant with them. Makofi kwake tafadhali.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. This is the most important section of today's function, because, as I said, this is my covenant, our covenant with the running mate to the people of Kiambu. And in looking at all the problems and the challenges that we have talked about, and looking at all the issues, we have looked at 5 pillars. And I know you've heard of many other manifestos with pillars, but we have 5 pillars, and I'll go through them in a very quick and comprehensive way. One pillar is on efficiency delivery of public service. We all know that we need to continue to have good health, to provide health services to our people, despite the constraints that we talked about. We all know that we need to provide more water. 170,000 connections is only 9%. So we have moved our connectivity from 56 to just about 60-something percent. We want to go to 85 and 90, and we have the potential to do that. On roads, we know that roads, rural infrastructure is extremely bad. We are lucky, as I said, that we are surrounded by major highways, including the now Western Bypass, Dika, Superhighway, the Western, Sironi, and Southern Bypass. Northern Bypass is coming. We are lucky, but we need to move from our houses to those highways. So we'll be talking about that. So, about education and so on. Efficient service delivery. What I want to tell you is this. People should no longer tell you or be very proud to tell you that they have done roads or they have done health facilities. Because I keep on telling people, you don't tell people every day that you've taken a shower. You don't tell every... Inue Fund is one of it, but we need to look at what else that will make us rich and will make Kiambu people who have better or pesa mfukoni. We'll talk about urbanization and housing, as I said. We keep on hearing about concrete jungle. We keep on hearing that we are uprooting our coffee to put up real estate. What is our solution? Where do we see ourselves going? The next pillar, so that's the second pillar. So the first pillar is on service delivery, an efficient service delivery. The second pillar is on economic empowerment. The third pillar is urbanization and housing, and we'll talk about that. The fourth pillar is very, very important. It is citizen socio-economic governance. Tunaiita sera mashinani. It is how you hold us accountable. And we'll talk about that. But mainly ask yourself, who decides which road is going to be done? Who decides that it is either road and not water? Is it you? Is it your pastor? Is it the MCA? Is it the governor? How can we have a system where you are the one deciding what will be done at your village or ward level? And when it is done, how can we have a system of accountability, of saying, now that contractor can be paid because the work done is good? How can we have a system where you say that the cost per kilometer of road is so exaggerated that we don't know where our money is going? That is what I'm calling governance and social accountability. We are going to have the fifth pillar, which is on social protection, usawa kwa wote. Kama vile nimesema, kuna asilimia 25 kwa 100 ya watu ya Kiambu ambao wanalala bila chakula. Kuna wale hawawezi hata kupata shilingi 50 kwa siku, hata kama sisi tunaonekana kama ni matajiri. How do we ensure that we move with our poor? How do we ensure that we take care of what I call underprivileged groups, including the single moms, including the older women and men, including the widows, including the people living with disability? So as it were, those are the 5 pillars on which my promise, or our promise, is based on. Let's start with the first one. Let's look at health. Tunaiita afya kwa wote. And by the way, let me at that point say this manifesto reflects very well on the 10-point manifesto by Azimio. Because health ni afya bora. You can call it in Azimio Babacare, but it is health. What are we thinking about health? The first thing, very innovatively, we are going to ensure that all our level 4 and level 5 hospitals have enough equipment, all the way from the CT scan, from digital X-ray to MRI, dialysis equipment, modern lab, so that we become a one-stop point for our patients. How do you do that? Because I said it's a question of how. We innovatively have started a process that we call leasing. I know you all know that we used to have a problem with ambulances. Either you call an ambulance and it's not there, or you call an ambulance and inakuja inasema haina mafuta. We had that problem. What did we do? We entered into a lease agreement with Kenya Red Cross. And they surprised us, and you saw them on the photo there. So we got about 9 ambulances. The 9th one is a mobile ICU. The response time for ambulances, even through COVID, is less than 15 minutes. We are no longer running the ambulances. We don't care who the driver is. If an ambulance breaks down, Kenya Red Cross brings in another ambulance. So our role is just to look for money to pay Kenya Red Cross, and our people get the service. Equally, we shall be entering into a lease agreement with companies so that we can acquire the equipment we are talking about on lease. And our work will be to look for money to pay for the equipment, and when the equipment fails, then the company will come and pick it. That is how we will become a one-stop health center provision in Kiambu County. We want to decongest our hospitals. As I said, our problem is non-communicable diseases. During COVID, together with a number of pharmaceutical companies, we started, and I want to thank Dr. Raju, and I know Dr. Raju is not here. He was a member of our COVID-19 Advisory Council, and we have worked together on decongesting our hospitals with regard to non-communicable diseases. Msifikirie sana, hii ni sukari na damu imeenda juu, unajua ukikasirika wakati mwingine, mwaga ati sukari no wahaisha. No, this is nothing to do with that. So now, what are we doing? Our plan is to make sure that we have moved enough drugs to the level 3 and level 4 hospitals closer to the patients. And we also decentralize medical personnel who will be dealing with non-communicable diseases at that level. We have our CHVs, community health volunteers, who will be monitoring, and they have been monitoring. We have a battalion of 3,000 of them. They are doing a fantastic job, although we have not been able to pay them because we require registration, which somehow did not go through this assembly. We are hoping the next assembly, the first business they will do is to enact a provision for us to be able to pay the community health volunteers, because they are the ones who deal with you. So in the morning, there will be somebody who can take your blood pressure, they can check your sugar, so that we move these people from mainly large level 4 and level 5 hospitals, so that we can create space for other patients with non-communicable diseases and can only be referred if the condition becomes more complicated. We also have a plan to complete 4 hospitals and increase our bed capacity by 1,500. I talked about Githunguri with a capacity of 300 beds, Raleigh with a capacity of 200 beds. We are doing Rosigate with a capacity of 100 beds. So we are doing Gatondo, the new tower, that will bring in probably about 500 beds. So we will be completing those hospitals so that we have additional facilities. But we have a plan to renovate our older hospitals, because I know a hospital like Kihara or Karori needs to be lifted up to level 5. Kihara needs to be improved. So we have a plan to make sure that we not only improve the existing facilities, we put in new ones to increase the bed capacity, by 1,500. What did we do? We made sure that the money that is collected at the hospital, we refer to it as Facility Improvement Fund, does not come to us. That money, once it's collected, it goes to a special account that is controlled by the hospitals themselves, so that if they collect money from patients, then they can be able to utilize that money, rather than what we found, where money was coming to the central revenue account, and then it was misappropriated, and hospitals were deprived that facility. We are in a very progressive part in establishing a cancer center. We have been in discussion with several international health providers from Turkey and from the US in order to establish a cancer center. And we know that that will complement the work that we are doing with Kenyatta University Research Referral and Research Hospital. But we also need to do our own diagnosis, and we also need to do our own chemo and radio, and we can do that in complementarity with Kenyatta University. We also, knowing where we are with a population, as I said, of 2.8 million, with Nairobi, a population of over 4 million, combined together a population of 6 million, we are in discussions with major hospital investors so that they can come to Kiambu and establish some private PPP kind of hospitals, so that you can have the cardio, you can have the renal, you can have cancer, you can have that done by private investors in Turkey, India. We've been in discussions in the US. They would want to come and set hospitals here because we have the population, we have the income, and we can infiltrate into Nairobi, so that we also encourage medical tourism as part of that. We are in negotiations in doing that. That is as far as health is concerned. I know there are other issues, but that is what we are committing to do in order to improve our health status. On agriculture, we will continue what we are doing. But more importantly, we want to make sure that Usawa, as I talked about, the poor households do have access to a minimum of 20 chicken to start with. We have already started that program. We have distributed over 200,000 chicken through the VBS. We are entering into a collaboration with day-old chick producers so that these families who will be identified by the community, the governance I was talking about are the ones who are going to determine which family is most needy. And then you can start with being given 20 chicken. If you're given 20 chicken and you get 10 eggs, or you get 15 eggs, you can eat 5 and sell 10. And we'll come back to that as far as reducing the cost of an egg, because right now, our biggest problem is that our cost of production is high. So Wangigi, if you take your eggs there, it is easier to sell eggs from Uganda than eggs from Kiambu or Wangigi. I'll come to that in a moment. We will continue to increase the number of village-based advisors and make them access GNUE and other facilities so that they can train more of our farmers, and we will continue to enhance on fertilizer and seed distribution. And you know the kind of seed that we are talking about has been the varieties that are very conducive, that are climate resilient, that will mature within 100 days. Importantly, we want to make Waruhio Farmers Agriculture Center into a modern demonstration center, where farmers will be going in for training, in-house training, so that they become better dairy farmers and they can become better crop farmers. So we have a plan to convert Waruhio into a modern demonstration farm and make it attractable. We want to promote very intensive agriculture. In this room, there are people who have been doing work on hydroponics. We've been working with KCB in supporting our young people to do hydroponics. Now, that's a very dangerous word to mention, but all it means is that you just use water rather than soil to produce your crops. The water will have all the nutrients that the crop would get from soil. Aquaculture, production of fish, is another area that we want to revamp. We have started it. Our CEC here has been working on it, but we want to revamp it. We want to start and intensify the production of black soldier fry. I know Eden is here. I don't know whether Eden is here. Eden is the person who has invested in the biggest facility here in Juja to produce black soldier fry. Black soldier fry, when it becomes a larvae, kegunyo, it becomes the source of protein for animal feed production. We want to enter into negotiations with animal feed companies, and we've already started that. We are talking to an Israeli company. We are talking to a company from Portugal so that we can start producing our own animal feeds. Now, the problem is that we are the biggest consumer of animal feeds if you look at what we are doing in Githunguri and other areas. But the problem is that, forget about now, forget about Ukraine and Russia, but generally the cost of our animal feeds is high and the quality is low. So the negotiations we are having with the Israeli and the Portuguese and wherever in a Greek farm is such that we need to have our own raw materials. The raw materials is we have to be able to produce sunflower. We have to be, and now sunflower goes to helping our farmers. We have to be able to produce, as I said, black soldier fry, which can be outsourced to the young people, and black soldier fry feeds on garbage. So you can see a win-win situation where you are producing a source of protein and you are minimizing your garbage. As I said, if Eden is here, he will testify that he's making money out of production of black soldier fry. It's just like an ordinary fry, but it's a black soldier. We will then be concentrating on production of high value crops. And I have had discussions with farmers from Rari on how we should start to produce herbs. So over and above producing the modern variety of potatoes, which now moves from 10 bags to 40 bags per acre, we should be able to introduce, and again we have discussions with Caroline here, who from Kimpranta, in terms of how farmers in Rari should move into production of herbs. The rosemary that you take whenever you go to a restaurant and unauliza dawa, turmeric and all of those, so that they are high value for export and for local production. As I said, we will revamp our dairy so that we can get to the level of 400 million liters. But more importantly, we want to start producing our own bread, which we can sell and compete with the other bigger companies. And I want to say here, because sometimes there have been rumors here and there, I've had discussions with Brookside. And Brookside has no problem with other people coming in, producing and processing milk. They actually would want to complement and collaborate with us, even to the extent that we have been discussing on how we could be giving farmers heifer, so that you are given a heifer, when it calves, the calf goes to another farmer and to another farmer, so that in areas such as Rari, which looks like the Scotland of Kenya, you can have dairy production as good as it is in Githunguri. On trade, we will still continue to make environment more conducive. When I came in, I made sure that we removed tax on, mama mboga and all of that. Nobody is charging you, but we want to continue to improve the environment in which you work. We want to make sure that we get partners that work with you. We also would want to start warehouse and storage facilities, so that whatever is produced is warehoused, so that the deterioration rate is reduced. So that if today you go to Githurai market, you realize that they can only sell what they brought from outside. But we don't have a facility, a cooling facility, where like fish, they can put in there for a week. Now, our role will be to facilitate the construction of those warehousing and storage facilities so that markets can become good outlets for high-level commodities. We will rationalize the levies and charges, and this is one thing that I will assure Kiambu people. We've been talking to Matatu Owners Association, we've been talking to bar owners, and everybody says, and we talk to shop owners, and everybody says that our levies are very high. My formula for this is this. If only 20% of you are paying the levies, then that's why you are paying it a high level. What we want to do is to make sure that 100% of you pay. Mukilipa wengi, kila mtu atalipa kidogo. Mukilipa wadogo, kila mtu atalipa mingi. So it is a question of economies of scale. It is a question of people feeling that there is self-regulation, that you make sure that everybody else is complying, therefore the levy and the rate and the charge will come down. On education, our promise is to do two things. One is to continue with the model ECD. It is also important that over the next 3 years, we should construct 20 model ECDs. We should improve our standard ECDs so that they become more competitive. They compete with the private nursery schools, they call them, the ECDs. We'll continue to invest in that. We'll also continue to invest in our teachers. But more importantly, because ECDs are necessary but not sufficient for Kiambu to raise its education standard, is to work with the County Education Board so that we can put the three parties together, the teacher, the child, and the parent, so that we can agree on what the problem is as far as the transition rates are concerned. We can have good infrastructure, but unfortunately, if the three are not working together, then there is a problem. I know that primary and secondary and tertiary facilities, education facilities are not within our jurisdiction as a county, but we have a role to catalyze that change by making sure that the environment is conducive and we can be able to discuss. On vocational training centers, which is also within our ambit, is to be able to equip the vocational training centers. What is interesting, first of all, what we want to do is to have specialized vocational training centers. So if you go to Cameredo, they may specialize in masonry. If you go to Kino, they may specialize in mechanical, and so on and so forth. The problem right now is that even those who are training to be mechanics, they are training with an Abion. I don't know how many of you know a vehicle called Abion or Rayrad. They are training with a Rayrad engine. But they are supposed, once they have graduated, to be repairing a Prado or a Lexus. So you train me on a 19th century engine, and then you want me to graduate and be trained on a 21st century engine. Our role is to ensure that the equipment that are in those facilities are modern. But more importantly, we want to link up with the industry. Because a lot of times we train people thinking that they have acquired enough knowledge and if they go to the market, they will be employed. What we want to do is to talk to the employer, talk to Broadways, talk to Bidco, talk to Brookside, talk to Kenya Airways and ask them for unskilled staff. What are you looking for? What exactly would you look for to employ somebody from a vocational training center or a TVET? And then they'll tell us. We will then make sure that we tweak the syllabus to fit that. And we will invite them to be coming to be training these people so that when they graduate, they go straight into the job market. We also want to ensure that we agree with them on attachment so that they can be attached in their own institutions, even sometimes at our own expense. We can pay them to be attached so that we don't, we don't make them incur any cost. That way, once they have graduated, they can either start their own business or they will get a job direct. Now, this is demand-driven training, and that's what we would want to do, in addition to adding more vocational training center. But let me tell you, we've given over 360 million shillings as bursary. That has benefited over 90,000 needy children, sometimes not needy because, thank you, sometimes not needy because the way of identifying needy student has been very wanting. And that is why we want to go to that pillar of social accountability, so that it is the villagers, is the development committee in the village that determines which children would get bursary. But our plan is to establish Kiambu Education Fund up to the level of 2.5 billion shillings. We will not get this money from the exchequer because we can't. We want to talk to our friendly development partners. We want to talk to the private sector. We want to talk to philanthropic persons and philanthropic organizations, and we want to talk to our diaspora. So we shall have a major fundraising activity to raise 2.5 billion shillings to go towards bursary for our needy kids. We will have a committee that will be responsible for management of that fund. The county, the governor, and whoever will not be there, they can be patrons, but we wanted to be managed the same way that we manage the COVID funds. When we put together the COVID Advisory Council, they opened an account that we were not signatory, and they were managing it, and that's how we ended up getting a facility in Tigoni, put in by MRM, at the cost of 40 million shillings without us touching. So we really would want to put in this 2.5, and working closely with the members of parliament that you are going to give us, we can be able to revamp the bursary and improve the education standard in our county. But I've also talked about lobby and advocacy so that we can get what belongs to us. I think to a large extent we have been ignored and we have been very quiet. That is as far as Musingi Bora or education is concerned in the first pillar of delivery of service. The second one is water, where, as I told you, we have water master plan across the whole county. We have plans to establish, and we have had discussions with the PS so that we can invest on Kenari Dam with a huge capacity to supply water to the 4 counties of Rimuru, Rari, Kiambu, Kikuyu, and Kabete. But I told you that we are also very strategic in ensuring that we capture the water from Karimenu in both Merehil, Karibaribi, but also at Jacaranda for the supply of water in these other places. We have a whole plan, and we have mapped out the county in terms of boreholes and how the boreholes will help some of the aquifers that I have talked about. More importantly is to reduce the non-revenue water. This is the water you lose between where you are pumping from and where you are pumping to. We have a very, very high level of non-revenue water. So we need to invest in new pipes and new technologies. These days there are technologies that will tell you where the pipes are leaking. More importantly is to remember that we have several water utility companies. When I came in, there was a very haphazard way of merging the water utility companies. Unfortunately, I have stopped that. I have reverted back to the individual water utility companies. We have identified management boards. What we want to do is to get a consultant who will tell us the best way of merging these companies. It is important for us to merge because we cannot continue to have 6 or 7 or 8 water utility companies. Counties that have gone ahead have merged. But do we merge to 2? Do we merge to 3? Do we merge to 1? We need a consultant. Just like you merge companies, you need a consultant to tell us the best way of doing it. So we have stopped it for now. It's still continuing. We have appointed the members of the board of our water utility companies, and we want to ensure that our water utility companies are efficient. We have to ensure that we solarize our boreholes. As you probably know, the cost of electricity is very high. I'm happy to report that we have solarized several boreholes, including boreholes, some in Thika, but also some in Kikuyu. Our objective will be to solarize a lot of boreholes so that you can incur an initial capital of solarization, and thereafter, maybe the running cost is minimized. I'll move faster. In terms of roads, I think there are 2 things that we did. One, we entered into an agreement with the national government through what they call MTF, and that's how we have managed to do 4 kilometers in every ward. So 240 kilometers in 60 wards. More importantly is when we procured the road construction units, where the ones that you saw here. We have 2 road construction units that have reduced the cost of doing a kilometer of road from 1.5 million to just 1 million. Our objective is to make sure, we want to make sure that every sub-county has its own road construction unit. With a road construction unit, we do 8 kilometers in a week. In fact, the problem is availability of materials. And we are in the process of identifying a survey, because we say we don't have materials. But when Chinese companies come, you see them scooping the material. So we have engaged experts to come and tell us where our materials are. So every single sub-county will have a road construction unit. And again, we don't have to have the money. We are going to enter into leasing, and our objective will be to look for money when this equipment, they call them the yellow goods, when the yellow goods are working. Equally, we want to make sure that we have a plan for the utilization of urban fund. We know that urban funds will be coming. They could be called Kenya Urban Support Program through the World Bank or whatever it will be. And what we have done is to engage a consultant and go to a place like Kikuyu and say, if Kikuyu was to grow in the next 5 years, what are the 3-4 things that we have to do? And those are the things that we will do with the urban fund. We've already engaged a consultant who will be starting work to say, for us to get a charter for Thika as a city, what are the things that we are supposed to do? We are supposed to put street lights. We are supposed to have modern parking. We are supposed to have CCTV cameras so that the consultant advises on what to do, because money follows good strategy. Strategy does not follow money. Once we have the strategy, we can look for money. And very quickly, we can be able to turn our municipalities into modern towns. We want to establish a resource center in every sub-county. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, there are people here who are being paid for working for Walmart in the US. You are in your house, but because of good connectivity, you can do what we call business process outsourcing. You are working as a watchman with your laptop for Walmart or any other department store in the US. Our young people will be able to work through the business outsourcing by ensuring that we have connectivity and we have information center in every ward. Some of these things are easily, very easily done, particularly if you work with organizations like Microsoft or organizations that I used to work for the boss of Microsoft and others that are willing to help create jobs. And therefore, we shall be able to provide good services at affordable rate, at a very, 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 very high speed, because we need to catch up with the others, and we are done with pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is economic empowerment. I've talked about making more money in our, putting more money in our pockets. I've talked about agriculture. I will not say much about that. I've talked about what we are going to do on dairy, on coffee, and other commodities. I have talked about that. But I have to say that we need to establish what we would call an agri-city. I had promised earlier on that we will have Muguga agri-city. And we went to a lot of extent. What is an agri-city? It is an area where you put in all of these processing units. So if you have a dairy, animal feed production, if you have fruit processing, if you have maize milling, you just put it in one area. And at the center is a barracking center where vehicles come, and at night they'll be leaving to different destinations distributing this. And we still have our vision of getting Muguga Agri-City. The problem has been working with Caro to agree on the kind of lease, and that is the way to go. As far as agriculture is concerned, I think we have more or less agreed on some of the things that we are going to do to modernize our agriculture. On small and medium enterprise, I'm promising that we are going to make Jinue the next talk of town as far as fund availability to medium and small and medium enterprise, micro and small and medium enterprise is concerned. As I told you, we are at 1.3 billion. You've heard the testimony. We've given out so far, I think I'm told, close to 30 million over the last 2 weeks. We still have 1.3. We are encouraging more and more people to come forward. Our target is to get to 5 billion shillings, and our target is to reduce the interest rates all the way up to 3%, and to some extent, if successful, make it that you are only paying the principal. That way, we'll have startups. We did an innovation and entrepreneurship week here at JKUAT, and we identified a number of innovations, from our young people, all the way from security to health. They are there. What they need is somebody to incubate what they are doing and then scale it up. Plus, of course, improving and ensuring that there is intellectual property right that is protected. We want to get to our young people so that we can be able to help them to move that way. We want to make Kiambu the next destination for large-scale investment. I talked about stopping investors from going to Kitengela and to Athi River. Yes, it is closer to the airport. We want to come up with investment information and incentives that when an investor gets to the airport, you think about coming to Kiambu, and I have talked about establishing some of the agri-city that I'm talking about, but also special economic zones, particularly on the sides of Thika and other areas where investors will come in. I've talked about establishing an animal feed factory. We still have the dream of establishing a bacon factory. Our land was taken, 240 acres in Uprads. We are in court, and we want to make sure that justice is done, and we are given back our land, 240, so that we can establish our bacon factory. But in the meantime, and I'm not saying that we shall not be given, that's not the only land that is available. We need to establish a hides and skin factory. We produce the largest number of hides and skin from Dagoretti, and they go to add value elsewhere. We have to make sure that sisi kwa sisi, that our hides and skin is being improved here so that we can do what Ethiopia is doing, exporting leather jackets and shoes all over the world. As I said, business and GNUA will come in through a different way of doing things, that we have to teach people how to do business. But we also have to have a team of people going to inspect how people are doing business so that we can be able to help you before your business comes down. That is the only way that we are going to produce the next lot of millionaires from Kiambu through systems such as GNUA. We will be establishing in every sub-county a profile of things to be done. In this manifesto, and you may not see it, we have a pie chart. That pie chart has 12 sub-counties. In each sub-county, we have said what needs to be done. I'll give you an example of Rari. Rari, we are talking about developing modern cooperatives. We have talked about value addition, including drying of vegetables. We have talked about exploiting the carbicide production, which is done currently without our consent. We don't know where the money goes. We have talked about, of course, the agro-processing, and we have talked about high-value herbs and vegetables. Now, this is for economic purposes, it's not for service delivery. Service delivery is elsewhere. And all the 12 sub-counties, we have said what will need to be done, and this is going to be picked up by the next pillar that I talked about, that the development committee in each of these wards and villages will look at this and say, what is the time span for implementing this? When we talk about herbs, how long is it going to take us so that we can have thousands and thousands of farmers in Rari producing herbs? I've talked about manufacturing, I will not come back to that. Let me go to the other pillar, which is the social protection pillar. I think this is a very, very important pillar because, as I said, there will always be those of us who will be left behind. And one of the things that we have said is that within the first 3 months, when, after we have gotten to the office, we will make sure that we have identified all our elderly parents, those ones who are 70 years and above, who cannot afford to pay for their medical bills. Yes, we shall make sure that they have NHIF because that is a starting point. But as a county, we shall be able to give them a county card that they can go to our hospitals and they will be treated for free because we need them to have good health. That will cater for 70 years and above. Again, the identification of those people will have to be done by local people, but of course you cannot lie to us that you are old when you are young. So some of these will be easily implemented than before. The second one, and we are referring to that as Afya kwa wote, promising that the pillar is Usawa kwa wote, but we are saying Afya kwa wote. As I said, we shall make sure that we have released this equipment so that even those who are 70 and above will be able to get access, because most of them suffer from non-communicable diseases. We also have a fund that we are going to create under the Usawa kwa wote to cater for single ladies. And I'm being very serious on this, and it's not a popularistic approach. Everywhere I have gone, I have been getting the number of single ladies in our community. And let me tell you, the percentage is very high. We'll probably do a survey, but it's very high. These are the mothers and the fathers within their homes. And they have children in school. We need to establish, and we are thinking very seriously about utilizing GNUE, but this time hyping off part of GNUE that would go directly targeted to single ladies so that they can start their own business and they can start, but take care, we are not telling you to run away from your husband so that you can benefit from this fund. But it's a fund that we are very serious about starting. We will be starting a fund over and above establishing rehabilitation centers. We will be establishing 2 rehabilitation centers, one in the east and one in the west, for our young people who have been lost in drugs and alcohol. Now, those rehabilitation centers will have to be started. I know we are having a problem with the rehabilitation center at Karuri because of the community around there, but we need to establish those, and we need to set up a fund of ensuring that the people who graduate after they have been rehabilitated are internalized, or they are put back into the community, either to get jobs or to get business. Because the problem is, you get them through rehabilitation center and they are through, but if they are idle, they go back to their old habits. So we are considering the people who have been lost in drugs and alcohol to make sure that we not only rehabilitate, but we have a fund that takes care of them. Again, there are quite a number of philanthropic organizations, there are quite a number of development partners that sees that as a major problem, particularly for people like us in Kiambu. We shall be considering the windows, first of all, by bringing them together. I don't mean Dirisha, I mean people who have lost, we shall be looking at them and starting a program for them where they could also be facilitated to be engaged in productive life so that they are not just wasted. And finally, to look at our PWDs, we have made a decision that if you give us the opportunity, we shall establish a PWD directorate, which will be headed by a PWD person, and it will be, most of the employees will be PWDs, and the objective is to make sure that we reach out to our PWDs because they seem to be neglected, and we always talk about them after we have talked about everybody else. And that is the Usawa pillar. Our next pillar is socio-economic governance, and I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. I've talked about citizen participation in the management of the county, holding the county accountable, and the way to do this is to get village committees. There are counties that have gone, devolved all the way to village committees with a village administrator. We want to make sure that those committees are development committees, and they will be holding us accountable in identification of the projects, in participation, making sure that you participate, you look at our budget critically, and you assess us. Making sure that you raise issues or vices when they exist, because vices and lack of transparency and accountability happens with you in the village. It doesn't happen at the headquarters. So we shall be able to do that. And to facilitate, we shall be having these boards that shall be erected very competitively by the people in the village, so that they can know that they are trusting people whom they believe in. And they will help us, these boards will help us functionally to give us a feedback. They will also be able to tell us the quality of work that has been done and whether that work should be paid. So the certificate will not just be certified by our engineer, it will have to come from the community itself, so that they are satisfied that the culvert was put in the right way and the road was constructed in the right way. And this is a very, very important pillar, Kiambu people. This is the only way that you can be able to hold your governor and his government accountable. Before these get to EACC, before these get to DCI, you shall be able to do that. Right now I know there has been a lot of issues coming in through social media, but we want social media to move physically to the village so that we can get that feedback. And that is the most important pillar that we are calling socio-economic governance as pillar number 4. Our pillar number 5 is, as I said, I think we've covered all the pillars. What we are talking about is how we are going to finance this. I think it is important not just to talk, but we need to talk about how we finance. Of course, we will continue to get resources from the exchequer, from the national government, and we are happy that Baba na Mama, they are very, very keen on devolution. And we are very happy that everybody is saying you increase the proportion of money going to counties. But more importantly, we shall be able to increase our own source revenue. But we don't do this by overtaxing. We do this by being very innovative. We have, like for instance, land rates that has not been paid properly. We have quite a number of areas. Kiambu is a county that should be able to create up to 5 or 6 billion shillings on own source revenue. And that is the money. And also, we shall be able to seal all the loopholes that are existing today, because there are quite a number. Because, you know, it's one thing to be governor, it's another thing to be governor of people you did not appoint. So what I'm saying is we become efficient, and we shall seal the loopholes, and we shall be able to generate enough money to run our programs. We also want to become development partners friendly by becoming transparent, and also by creating environment for private sector participation in the country, because a lot of development partners are no longer talking about grants. They are talking about trade finance. And we want to become, and I want to report to you, I'm happy that we are one of the 8 partners with US government. There are 8 of them, 8 counties, and we are one. And the objective before COVID was that we will not only trade directly, so we can export our coffee without any limitation to the US, but also the US investors would come to the partner county and start investing there. The development partners are looking for accountability, they are looking for strategy, they are looking for being able to account for the resources coming in. We shall also be encouraging private investment so that we can do PPP. I have talked about us talking with medical providers so that they can set up their plants here. They can set them up on BOT. Okay, build, operate, and transfer. We shall, and one of the things that we are going to do immediately is to put up a plant to convert waste into energy. That we have to do through PPP. There is our input and your input, because we cannot continue to collect garbage from Remuru and take it all the way to Kangoki through Ruiru. That is the old way of doing things. Tembahuti haukiaraine. That is no longer going to be the modern way of doing things. So in the 6 months, once you give us the mandate, we shall have started a company that will convert waste into energy, that we shall do sorting, because you don't need to transfer waste of cabbage and waste of tomatoes and whatever from Raleigh for it to come and rot in Kangoki. You can leave it there as manure, all you need to do is to take the stuff that will be converted or recycled, and that comes in as a form of investment, and it will move us forward. It's a way of raising revenue, because once we generate power, we can sell that power to KPLC, and we generate our money. There are quite a number of areas that we shall be considering as we finance the initiatives that I'm talking about. I want to say that because I want to add this, that objectively, we are looking at floating an infrastructure bond. But as I told you, for us to float an infrastructure bond, Laikipia did float an infrastructure bond. We need probably a 2.5 infrastructure bond with the help of Treasury. For us to do that, one, we have to make sure that we have cleared our debts. So we have to come up with a quick way of ensuring that we pay the pending bills and the debts that we owe, so that the second thing that happens is credit rating. We are credit rated, and after that, we, in the medium term, before the 5 years are over, we should be able to float an infrastructure board that will do all our roads very quickly, and then we can be left with servicing the board itself. I want to stop there and say, in the last 2 years, we have seen, yes, we can do it. We have worked against the vagaries of COVID. We have worked against the vagaries of now the war between Ukraine and Russia. We've worked against the vagaries of the weather, and I have not talked about climate smart technologies. We've worked at a very, very difficult circumstance. But let me tell you, we have increased our bed capacity by 1,500. We have 54 ICU beds. We have done 576 kilometers of earth road. We've done 200 and plus of urban roads to bitumen. We've brought water to 170,000 households. We have brought sanity in Kiambu. You no longer hear the kind of wrangles that used to be there. Because people say, sisi si wana siasa, sisi ni manager. I can assure you, we are equally good politicians, because robbers wrongly will throw you, but we are managers. We are coming up with good strategies. And good strategies will be followed by money. Strategies do not follow money. 2 years we have been tested. And my plea to you is, give me a mandate to implement for you this covenant. And with that, I want to thank you most sincerely for coming. And I want to say, and finish by saying, and I know we will have a session with Michael here, is that the way to move on 9th is simply to do that and say, Nyoro, Tano, Fresh. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, asante sana. I know shortly we will be doing a one-on-one, but just to make sure that kila mtu. I just want to ask a question. How many of you have been fully convinced that that's our covenant with our governor? How many? Mikono juu. Nimwetekera. Nimwetekera oguo. Nimwauga kiu nikio kirikaniro kiria aiga. Nimukuiganira kirikaniro kiu nake. Sawa. Nituko tukiaraniria nake haria dakika itari kunene. We'll have a one-on-one with His Excellency the Governor. But right now I'd like to call on one very good friend of mine. His name is John Jage. Ikada ya kuri ya kanuga. Oke na kia tuligithirie kamwe. Wakairia maundu mathiete kidogo kidogo. Karibu sana.
Wapinduru! Turugame tunogore mirire unigetha tuigire ngavana witu.
Nimwageithio ni muruti wa wira. Nimwageithio ni gavana wa Kiambu. Muruti wira ningiwe gitio. Twitite tukaigana mugambo. Wa Kiambu Nyoro tutiacenjia. Ni gavana mwega muruti wira. Uranesia ke mweri wa kanana.
Nyoro tano fresh.
Mira
Wapi dunia Nyoro?
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really do appreciate it.
God bless you.
Bless you too.
Modono Nyoro. Turn of flesh. Thank you.
Asante sana. The next step, we would like to just invite the governor, maybe as we go to the next phase. I know Sheila soon will be on standby with a few testimonials here and there. Karibu sana, Bwana Governor. When if you can get me one microphone for His Excellency. Negatho nyingĩ mũno ndĩraigua marauga nĩ Nyoro, ndĩraigua makĩũria nĩkĩ amaheire. Asante sana. Governor, thank you very much. And one thing would really like to appreciate is the way you have articulated issues, several things that you found in the county and the things you'd like to change within the county. And I picked several of them. One thing that I noticed you're keen on is education. And you spoke about Elimu Bora. But as we look at Kiambu County right now, we are almost being left thinking it's not Elimu Bora ni Bora Elimu. We have found it in a very deplorable part. Only 50% of the students get to school. By the time they are through from baby class all the way to Form 4, only 36% are making it out, which means there's a wastage in between here. What are we going to do about the education in Kiambu?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. And I want to say that if it was not for education, some of us would be very far. We in Kiambu have been losing opportunities because with the kind of transition that you are talking about, what there will be is that when it comes to people being engaged by international companies or even by the national government, even to join JSC and whatever, we will not get that opportunity. And to a large extent, if you look very carefully, and you just need to visit one of the universities here, whether it's JKUAT or KU, and ask how many people are from Kiambu, you'll be shocked. The thing is, this has been a problem for a long time. First of all, because of our close proximity to Nairobi, right from the young age, people started feeling like they would go to Nairobi and start doing some work, and therefore. Students, they are the parents, and they are the teachers. Those three parties are not working together. And therefore, we probably need to pause and change that. We can talk about ECD, and we can improve the ECD. We can then talk about the primary schools and the members of parliament have been doing a good job to improve the infrastructure of the primary schools. But infrastructure alone is not enough. So what we need to do, and I mentioned this, is to see it as the education board, Kiambu Education Board, and we bring together the key stakeholders and say, yes, like I said, let's try and get the bursary so that you don't lose going to school. Some of our best teachers. I think it is something, by the way, this may take a generation because the attitude is already very, 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 very bad. But like I said also, we have been losing opportunities. How many times have I intervened when I hear that a child has been admitted in Alliance High School, but the mother cannot afford to take the child to Alliance High School? So they say, why don't you go to a day school next home because of fees? So there are a combination of these. And when you have a problem like the one we are having on education, what you need to do is to do a diagnosis and prioritize what needs to be done first. So it's something that requires all the stakeholders to come together. I know quite a number of people, some of the philanthropic individuals who have been keen in us trying to change our education system. Because like I said, we don't have opportunities in international organizations. We don't have opportunities in multinational companies. We don't have opportunities in government. We are only doing the small and medium enterprise that we are talking about.
You could be changing, as we finish up on education, you could be changing the infrastructure. You could be changing how things are looking. But are you able to actually change the mindset of people to embrace education in Kiambu?
You can. First, there is this element, and I remember having done some work in Namanga during my other life. And we are doing some work there with Masais. And we talked about education because it came up as one of the constraints. And I remember this Mzee telling me, what is the point of taking my boy to school and the one who just finished is here and is jobless? So what you are having is disincentives. So people are feeling, because look at Kazi Mtaani, you'll be shocked to find that within the people who are in Kazi Mtaani, some of them are having first degrees, others may be having a second degree. Just advertise a position for somebody with Form 4. The number of PhDs that you get, you'll be shocked. So on one hand, there is that disincentive saying, so-and-so went to school, so-and-so do not have a job. Why would I go to school to become like so-and-so? So what we are talking about is this holistic approach by ensuring that we identify job creation opportunities, as I have been highlighting in agriculture, in manufacturing and so on. So there is a way. Once you start creating incentives, I can tell you that when I went to the university from my home area, we were very few. And people started to hear the word university in the village. And from there then, you can't count the number of people the following 2 years who went to the university. Just by creating an incentive and an example of what it is like to have gone to school.
Yes.
I think we also have to realize that once you go to school, it's not necessary that you get a job. You go to school so that you also can become a good manager of your own resources. You go to school so that you can also get that exposure. So yes, they may look doom and gloom right now,
yes,
but I think with a clear plan, with clear incentive system, we can be able to change that. I think also our leadership needs to change. And it is very unfortunate, I have to say this, that even this idea that members of parliament should have a degree. Look at how this degree has bothered politicians. Me, I did not even know that it is so difficult to get a degree. Now, when you hear that for you, as a member of parliament, you have to have a degree, people go to court, they fight against it. So what are you saying? There is no incentive for education, because you can be, you can be elected as a member of parliament, you can be elected as an MCA, you can be elected without education.
Yes.
So even our own system, our own society, we need to change and recognize some of those areas. So it requires concerted effort. I know, Mheshimiwa Jomo here has done a lot of work. Here I can testify what he has done, improving education standard in Kiambu. And that's the kind, Kiambu Township, Kiambu constituency. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do. Create incentives, pick the ones who have shown that they can. Our society also needs to value education so that there are returns to investment in education.
Thank you, sir. Let's get to, I want to entertain these two questions. One is agriculture. Agriculture, you have really spoken about it in a big way, to a point where you have the VBAs, the village-based advisors. Two, I want to attach this question to the story of land and housing. We are at a place where in Kiambu right now, where people have started approaching coffee. Those who have tea, they've started approaching their tea. They've started slicing their land into 50 by 100s. How are we going to change the mindset from towered buildings, from concrete jungle, to people who will have food for themselves? No ona indo ici cia kuria matirahota andu a Kiambu wekuriria tugwikate.
You know, I don't know what you tugwikate ajokia na Gikuyu, but let me tell you, that is a question that has been bothering quite a number of us, because excuse me, because on one hand, if you are an owner of 50 acres of coffee, and coffee is not bringing you any returns, and you fell sick, you want to go to South Africa for medical treatment, and coffee is not giving you returns, I'm not sure that you say that you are going to retain that coffee. You will not put up a concrete jungle because you love the country, but you don't love yourself. At the end of the day, in the Constitution, this is referred to as a private land or private asset. So you have to balance between the private interest, which is you, and that the best you can do is to sell it to somebody who can put a concrete jungle, with the social interest. The social interest is that if we put concrete jungle everywhere, then we don't have food, all of us will die. For me, what there is that in areas like Kiambu, the price of land is very high. In economics, we say the opportunity cost of land is very high. And therefore, you cannot plant maize into a land in the Degwa and make 30,000 shillings per acre. That will not make sense. What we need to do is to increase the value of our agriculture. We need to move to very high value production that is regular, that when you need money to go to South Africa, you can be able to do it. So if we are talking about greenhouses, if we are talking about production of flowers, if we are talking about the herbs I'm talking about, we have to be able to raise, because today you do agriculture because you have nothing else to do. You don't do agriculture, the very few people do agriculture because there is money in it. And I talked about Githunguri. Githunguri and now the Duberi and Mangu Progressive. They are doing farming because they can see money in there. But a lot of people wake up and do agriculture because for the heck of doing it. So that is one way of ensuring that we do high value, that is regular and payable, that if you have a problem, then you can be able to get returns for your land. But two, you will have to do what other countries have done. If you go to Turkey, what they have done is they have reserved their high potential, including Scotland and France and other places. They've reserved where now the state may be able to give the owner, the land owner, some incentives. It may be monetary or non-monetary incentives to remain in agriculture. Then what do you do for development of cities? Like here in Kiambu, what we are trying to do, and by pumping water from Mondiri to take it to Ndeya, or from Oromo to take it to Ndeya, is to make Ndeya habitable. There's good sun. If we can improve the roads, if we can bring water, if we can bring electricity, if we can build roads, because there are some places where, like in Nashu, if you can do the road from the main road to Nashu, within 20 minutes you could be in an express highway, because you get into that road, into Southern Bypass and there. So what does that mean? That real estate owners will go to other areas whose opportunity cost is low. And therefore they leave the land for agriculture and others. But we have to think as a society how our society needs compensate the private needs. Because at the end of the day, I don't think there is anybody who wakes up for the welfare of the society. You wake up for yourself, and by doing what you are doing, you can make the society better.
A lot of, even as we still say with the matters land, a lot of people probably will not know that Kiambu is holds one of the best wonder of the world in this world. The third word, about the second country where we have a wind corridor. What are you going to do to make sure that you have attraction, tourist attraction, people to come and see these things and people to trade with these things? For Kiambu, you are neighboring Nairobi right here.
You know, what you have said is very important. In fact, we have a lot of potential on weed. We have quite a number of tourist destinations. Let me tell you, if you are stressed in Nairobi, all you need to do is to drive through Dubai and enter into the tea farms there and go on the top. And after 10 minutes, your stress will be gone. We've been trying to talk to some of the owners there, and again, it goes to concrete jungle, so that we can put a modern hotel up there. Because look at escarpment. As you are going towards Nakuru, before you get to Sokomjinga, the viewpoint. People come there to view Rogonaut and other places. But they only stop and go. What is this that we can do is that we can put a modern hotel on the upper side so that instead of viewing it for 5 minutes, you can view it for 24 hours. Now, what we are trying to do is, over and above making Kiambu an investment destination, and we are going to come up with a brochure. We are going to do a roadshow across the world to sell Kiambu as the destination for investment. We will also be looking at tourism. Indeed, my tourism director has been, over the last 2 budgets, telling me that we should do an open bus, and we put it outside the big hotels in Nairobi, and we say, see Kiambu by day. So that you can come, you can see 14 falls, you can come, you can see the escarpment, you can see all of these things that we are talking about. So those are areas that we think, as we look at Nairobi as an attraction for investment, we shall be able to do. Yes, we need also to harness energy. And I know there is a group that has been trying to put together windmills, like the ones in Ongong Hills, on the sides of Ndeya, because there is a weed corridor, as you are saying. But, you know, the county has not come in very clearly with clear incentive systems, including what I talked about, solid waste management. I know I've had discussions with the PS, being an expert in energy, about how we do solid waste management. So these are issues that, for a long time, is very unfortunate, because counties look at their success in form of how many kilometers of roads you've done, or how much water is available. And like I said, those are necessary. You don't need to tell me that you took a shower in the morning. So you don't have to be proud because you've done a road or you've done whatever. What is important is, what is that road doing? Are you able to call that road hardware, and the software is the farmer in Gatodo North, who can now have 3 dairy cows and can very quickly sell the milk to Mangu Progressive, and that milk is processed so that by 6, by 5, by 4:30, that milk is already in Kayore, in Dirota, and other places.
Yes.
So these are things, counties must change, and management of counties must change. They should not be judged by service delivery. They should be judged by how they empower the people so that they can become the next lot of millionaires within their counties.
As As I was listening, you talked about single ladies. I'm just thinking those are single mothers that we have, and we love them because I'm a product of one. But there's one I'd like us to address. When I look at the back there, I see a lot of young people. In fact, the majority of people around here are young people. What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts about these young people? What do you want to do for them? Where do you want to take them? Where did you find them? I know we've had a lot of drug issues, like here in Rwaka. Where do you want to take that generation next to?
First of all, the reason why that generation is the majority there, first of all, I know they love me, but secondly, as I said, 65% of our population is young people.
Yes.
So, and I keep on saying this, when you look at everything about Kiambu, including COVID numbers, we were always number 2. Not because we were careless, because we have 2.4 million people. We are the second most populous county in the country.
Yes.
So, a majority of those people are jobless. And I said, you can check, some of them may be having degrees. So essentially what we are talking about is, as I said, we have to be able to create jobs. You know, when I talk to them, they tell me, okay, Governor, I'll campaign for you, get me a job in the county. And I've been telling them, I'll get you a job in the county, you'll be paid 20,000 shillings per month. That is hardly enough to take you home. And you realize that you are spending the whole day because I have to make sure that you spend the whole day. How about if we start to think about what I was talking about, which is business. Getting them to do business. Because at the end of the day, we are eating, we are consuming. The question is, where is that food going to come from? At the end of the day, we are putting on, nice clothes and shoes and whatever, like the radio we saw. So for me, the most important thing is to start making business opportunities for these people. Either for them to become entrepreneurs, like I said, they are taught to enter into business, all together with attraction of investment. If we had good policies in this county in the last 9 years, we would be having all those factories, like I said, in Kitengera and Athi River, here in Thika, in Juja, and all those other places. These people would be employees of those companies. But instead, we started mistreating them. Some of them were actually moving out of Kiambu to other areas. So attracting investment so that we can create jobs is one way that we are talking about taking care of these people. We have talked about vocational training centers and TVETs. A lot of these people can become business people. They can open their own garages. They can open hair salons. Because remember, when we all make money the way we are talking about, more and more ladies would want to do more fashionable hair. I'm not saying the one that they have is not fashionable. But I'm saying there will be demand to do that. There will be demand for food. There will be demand for other things. And those people going through vocational training center, going through demand-driven training, so that we have talked to those institutions and known what kind of caliber of people that they want to employ, those people will get jobs. So when you look at the construction that is taking place in Kiambu now, the concrete jungle, and look at the people who are engaged in it, I have to tell you, the other day we were looking at statistics, and we were saying that if you go to a construction site, in fact, I remember when we went to Karimenu, and the people in Karimenu said that the local people are not being given jobs. And, I remember we were with CS Matiang'i, and CS Matiang'i said, within a month, we will come and take stock on how many local people have been given jobs. Also, Mheshimiwa Wajiko Kibe was, very, very passionate about it. But when we talked to the contractor, he said, your people do not want to do this kind of jobs. So when the job, manual job and whatever is available, you'd rather get somebody from outside. And our people do not want to do that. So we need to, it's not that we want to force them to do what they don't want to do. It is that we have to understand what they want to do and then help them do what they want to do. If they don't want to become watchmen, you can't force them to become watchmen.
That's right.
But you have to know, if you are not watchman, then you can be the employer of the watchman. How do I make you the employer of the watchman? And that is what we have not done. So there will be quite a lot of things that we'll do on TVET, on creating jobs through manufacturing, on agriculture. You know, you said, you had it, this country is spending in excess of 350 billion shillings to import basic food.
Yeah.
We are now talking about importing maize from Mexico. You've had that. We have waived duty. Now, when you import maize from Mexico, we could have produced it here. We are actually importing poverty. We are exporting wealth. These guys will remain jobless as long as we are importing rice from Pakistan, as long as we are importing wheat from Ukraine. So if we concentrate on agriculture, if we can do the greenhouses I was talking about, if we can do hydroponics, if we can do aquaculture, if we can do black soldier fry, these guys will have jobs. But we need to think outside the box.
Yes.
And don't force them to do what they don't want to do. Know what they want to do and do it. The other thing, which I have not talked about, is identifying talents. These people are very talented, either in football or even in music. We are going to come up with a music studio. We are purposing to come up with 2 music studios so that we can tap on the talents of those people. They are very talented. We've been going around with one of the talented persons who is my ambassador in politics, and everywhere you go, because she takes place, in one of the drama series in Nyoro. And she's earning her daily bread, she has reputation, she's a star, and nobody would have known that. There she is, Nyambo,
Well done.
Idagaliene, nobody would have known that she has that potential. So we need to know how we exploit the potential of those people. We need to identify what they can do best. We have, Akina Maradona there, the best footballers. So we have to do our sports so that we identify them. Now we have Kirigiti Stadium here. We don't want it to be empty. We want to make sure that we have a series of tournaments so that we can make use of this. So there are a lot of things that we can be able to do. And I'm telling you, in 2-3 years' time, if particularly we can make use of Jinue, I can tell you, a lot of those will be having jobs to do. Yeah.
As we wrap up, I know you've talked a lot about health, you've talked a lot about water, you've expounded on it, but one thing that caught my eye is the vision to have a city within a city, the Thika city. Where is that taking Kiambu as a county? The Thika city.
It is so important that, they say, they keep on saying that usijipanga utapangwa. What is happening is that Nairobi is moving very fast, and it could be eating Kiambu. A couple of years back, you could, between Githurai and probably Safari Park, it was just open bush. Now you can see the concrete jungle all the way. So if we are not careful, we'll very, very soon be told that Ruiru is part of Nairobi, it has become Nairobi. Like it happened. Waithaka was part of Kiambu. Kangemi was part of Kiambu. Now they were all swallowed by the city because hatukujipanga, tulipangwa. Now when we look at Thika, Thika, Juja, and Ruiru are the most populous sub-counties. In fact, if it was by population, we would have proposed that Ruiru becomes the city. But Ruiru may have the population, but do not have the infrastructure that Thika has to become the city. So that is why we are planning to ask ourselves, if we were to apply for the charter to become a city, what do we require to have done? We need to double the water intake, as I talked about, from 29,000 cubic liters to 54,000. We need to be adequate, although Nairobi is a city without water, but we don't want to go that direction. We need to do the infrastructure. We need to do the housing. We need an airport. I said we have 700 acres that we got from Del Monte. So the most important thing is, even if we are not to become that city that you think, we will be Santon in South Africa. If you're in South Africa, you can be in Johannesburg. But 15 minutes drive, you'll be in Santon, which is another city, but it's not part of Johannesburg, but it's a city by itself. But it's connected to Johannesburg. So these are things that we need to look at. And not just Thika. Thika, yes, we propose to be city. We proposed Kimende to be a town. We've proposed, you look at areas like Kikuyu. Yeah, you look at Mwemuto.
Yes.
You'll be shocked. The other day we went to Mwemuto. We are doing the first tarmac road around Mwemuto. We are bringing in water through Kikuyu water to Mwemuto. And you know what? Mwemuto is a stone throw from Nairobi.
Yes.
Spring Valley and all those whatever. But the difference is like life and death. The minute you leave Nairobi and you come to Mwemuto, you didn't know that this is a bangy place, it's a dusty place, there is no water, because there is no plan. But if you plan today, what you are going to do in the next 5 years for Mwemuto, even if Mwemuto does not become a city, it will become a much more comfortable place to live in. And that is why we have to have a strategy. We have to think ahead and look for resources with a strategy. So that at the end of the day, we may not necessarily become Nakuru, because Nakuru is farther away from Nairobi. We may be, like I said, a town, within a town, a city, within a city, and I said we shall be the Santon of Johannesburg.
Makofi kwa governor tafadhali. And finally, I want to switch from English to a little bit of Greek. Kagutu ekamo siekerago atikagate. Gatia kago mugeni. Nigio ndenda gwa kahinda gaka wenda geka cigano na waririe andu ayo othe. Aya ni makuiguite magoka magaikara haha tugakorwo twi nao muthenya mugima. Aya ni magiro ni guko o mundu haria eguthie arehe ange atano. Aririe andu aku governor.
Thank you. Nĩ ngatho mũno Michael. Niĩ ona ndamaka mũno tondũ rĩrĩa njũkĩte kĩpindi gĩaku twaragia Gĩkũyũ, rĩu ũnjerithirie Gĩthũngũ, rĩu nginya ndanoga. Ngwĩciria andũ aitũ nĩ mwaigua meciria marĩa ndĩ namo ma Kĩambu, tondũ mũndũ andĩkwo wĩra nĩ ambaga kũheo probation. Ukerwo ati mĩeri 6 ya mbere nĩ kũrorwo kwamba kũrorwo nĩgetha nawe ukamenya ati nĩ ũrarorwo. Mĩaka ĩyo ĩrĩ tũkoretwo twĩ na inyuĩ nĩ muonete maũndũ marĩa tuhotete gwĩka, ona kwĩna mathĩna maingĩ ma covid, ma irio kũgĩa goro, ma gũkorwo twagĩte mbura, nĩ muonete maũndũ marĩa twĩkĩte. Tugakorwo ati ogorwo nĩ thibitarĩ citũ nĩ kũrĩ andũ maragĩthi makĩaragia, no nĩ mũĩ atĩ thibitarĩ citũ itihana ũrĩa ciahanaga mbere. Nĩ mũĩ nginya ona ũhoro wa ndawa, no twarie tondũ njugaga ũngĩthiĩ ATM ũkore ndĩrĩ na mbeca, ti kũhareharĩte, nĩ mbeca ciathira na wahota gũcoka thutha wa ndagĩka 5 ũkore ĩna mbeca. He maũndũ meho twĩkĩte na tũkona no ndũrĩa wĩna bata nĩ gũkorwo atĩ mĩaka ĩyo ĩrĩ twĩna mũbango wa mbere gũkorwo atĩ nĩ tũgũthondeka maũndũ marĩa inyuĩ mũroraga, ũhoro wa barabara, ũhoro wa maĩ, ũhoro wa thibitarĩ, ũhoro wa gĩthomo, maũndũ mau mothe nĩ tũkũrora. No nĩguo ndĩroiga atĩrĩrĩ, mau magĩrĩire gũkorwo mekĩtwo, na nĩkĩo ndĩroiga gũtirĩ mũndũ ũkĩraga rũcinĩ agacemania na ũngĩ akamwĩra nĩ ndĩthambire mwĩrĩ, tondũ mũndũ nĩ agĩrĩirwo gwĩthamba mwĩrĩ. Koguo gwĩthamba mwĩrĩ ti ũndũ wa gũthiĩ ũkĩraga andũ. Naguo gũthondeka barabara njega, na gũthondeka thibitarĩ njega, na gũkorwo andũ mena maĩ, ũcio ti ũndũ wa gũtindaga tũkiuga. Ũndũ ũrĩa twĩna bata naguo nĩki tũgwĩka nĩgetha tũkorwo twĩna mbeca mĩhuko itũ, nĩgetha maĩ makorwo maragũteithia gũthondeka mbeca, nĩgetha barabara ĩkorwo ĩragũteithia gũtwara iria harĩa ndĩri ya Mangu Progressive karĩ Muru, nĩgetha ũrĩhwo ciringi ciaku 60 kana irio ũkĩrĩhwo, nĩgetha ũcoke mũciĩ ũrore kagombe kau gaku atĩ wagũra irio, ũragũra irio njega na ũragũra na thogora mwega. Nĩ atĩa tũgwĩka nĩgetha toiguo muonire mũtumia haha wĩna iratũ, andũ aya othe me haha mũndũ akorwo ena kawĩra araruta. Tarĩu ndĩrerire andũ a boda boda tũracemanĩtie na wĩira, ndĩramera tafadhali tondũ mwĩna sako, ndĩrenda mũke ndĩmũtware kũrĩa KCB nĩgetha mũkomberwo nduthi 4 icia sako rĩu ti cianyu, nĩgetha mũkĩruta wĩra wanyu na iyo sako yanyu nĩrona mbeca cia nduthi, Moima nduthi mukuona atiri bata wa guthie na nduthi 6 kaba kuguraga kari ni kuria boda boda makoragwo methi kama etwaga 254 makoragwo na ngari cia taxi gikuyu kioigire iriragira rukuini ka kuigana tungirora mathina maria twinamo na muno yuthi aitu turaikara maisha moru gukira aciari aitu. Aciari aitu ni maikarite maisha megega kumakira, nawe uraikara maisha moru na mwana waku nake tondu ndagathoma eguikara maisha moru. Ndagera kumwira ati ithuĩ mubango witu ni tukorwo twina mbeca muhuko, na mibango ĩrĩa twina yo mwaigua yothe ndiragweta ni mibango ikwenda kwambĩrĩria kuma kũrĩ inyuĩ, na nĩ hekwenda kurera muhuko waku umenye wega ati ndugatiga thina waku muciĩ ugithie kumikia ugathio nayo ona thina waku no warikia niguo kainuka uririkane gutire mara na ni turamicenjia turamita riu soko fresh tatano fresh tondu ndungigithie thoko wi mugi na thoko ni ngigume kuo wi mugi ciugo imwe ni tukwambiriria ona kia ndutu ni tugucenjia maundu mau na kia ng'ombe so riu no muhaka tuhote gukorwo ni turathondeka andu acio matuthekagirira makihituka au magithie Kakamega Kisii tondu thibitari nie ni ndathia thibitari ya Githii ngiruta wira na kuu na muruke wambiriria kuigua uria kuranunga wambiriria haha warikagia kuria umuthi thibitari ria njega muno level 5 ni Kisii, thibitari ria njega muno thiini wa bururi ni Kakamega. Ungithie thoko ya Kakamega ni kumaka ungimaka, ungikuruka ha makueni wone andu aitu no muhaka tukire na riu tondu ithuĩ twĩ ndigiri no muhaka tutengere tukinyire Mbarathi na tungika uguo manifesto ino ndarikia haha ni tugucoka tuikare thi twambiririe kurania ni atia tugwika ni hetha tukorwo twi county iria i mbere. Nie ngwenda kumuthaitha uguo na ni mwaigua twari uhoro wa githomo haha uria ciana citu ciagirire gukorwo ima professor ono giko ithuĩ tutiahotire. Koguo nire kumuthaitha ngumuthaitha mweri 9 mureke tumire turore Kiambu itu i mbere na tucoke tunyite tuge ati munene witu wa bururi aratureheire kirigiti haha ona ngigathie ndari hindi akariganira ni kirigiti giki aratureheire haha. Turaririe na andu a kuma haria Rwaka kwambata Ndenderu maranjira uria property yao yagiire mbia ni undu wa Western Bypass. He maundu manene muno munene wa bururi atwikire no ndamuthaitha naguo ngurikia naguo ngiuka haha tukwaragia na thuri ndamera undu uria umakitie nie thiini wa bururi uyu witu na Kiambu ni mundu agokaga kwira thoguo ni akuire no gathie mathiko na wamutiga thingira wathie mathiko ukona gutire mathiko no wewe wiki uma hau irima-ini no thoguo ndakuite umutigire thingira no ni urumirire mundu ukwirire ati oguo ni akuire ugaciarwo ni yua matha mundu agokaga kwira uyu tiwe wa guciarire no getikia no ndunamuria nyoni uria wanjiarire. He maundu maingi muno turero tugitikagia no ndu uria wina bata ni ati ngirikia Ngai amuhete kahinda gaka like no other. Andu aria mari ku 1952 hindi ya emergency ti guthaitha ti Ngai wa mamenire maciarwo hindi iyo hindi ya bara makue micii yao ethuke ciana ciao ciage kihariro no Ngai wa mekirire hindi iyo na ko ni metikirire ni mangietikirire muthungu atwathe miaka ingi 20 nigetha ciana ciao ihote kurithia itige guthumburwo no ni maregire nigetha tukinye haria twakinyire December 1963 na 64 no horo cio githira tutikoretwo tukire na generation ici nyingi rere ni ituika na weyurie Ngai aguciarite kahinda ta gaka agakuiga haha nigetha ugatua decision ti undu waku we mwenyewe ni undu wa ruriri wa mwana waku na mwana wa mwana waku. Riu ukaririkanika we ati wari guku hindi yo gwatuika kwari na ituika nĩ ũndũ wa maũndũ marĩa tũgeka. Ngũmũthaitha andũ aitũ mũreke tũtige kwĩrwo maũndũ marĩa tũtaretĩkia. Na mũico nĩ njugĩte maita maingĩ mũno, nĩ mũĩ andũ a Mũrang'a na andũ a Nyĩrĩ matwĩtaga mbete, moigaga acio nĩ ambete, na magacoka makoiga atĩ andũ acio nĩ maconirwo maitho nĩ mbaka. Ũguo nĩ kuonania atĩ nĩ tuonaga mbere, nĩ tũkoragwo twĩ harĩa mbere. No rĩmwe ndarora tũmaũndũ tũrĩa tũreka ndĩrona tarĩ ithuĩ twaconire mbaka maitho. Rekei andũ aitũ tũikare tũconĩtwo maitho nĩ mbaka. Thengiũ mũno, Ngai amũrathime.
Asanti sana, ngatho nyingĩ mũno. Nĩ ngatho nyingĩ mũno rekei tũkĩre tuwe moko tu na igũrũ ũguo twĩre Ngai nĩ wega nĩ ũndũ wa maũndũ mega atwĩkĩire. Twĩre Ngai nĩ wega nĩ ũndũ wa gũtũhe gavana ũratũthikĩrĩria na agetĩkĩra kũrũgama na ithuĩ. Tuwe moko na igũrũ twĩre Ngai nĩ wega nĩ gũtũhe gavana watũhe kĩrĩkanĩro, ti manifesto atũhe, nĩ kĩrĩkanĩro. It's a covenant that he has given us, so we thank God. Na nĩtũgũthiĩ na mbere na gũkũhoera Ngai wa muoyo akwende. Asante sana. From here now I'll call Sheila Mwanyiga so that she can take us to the next phase. Sheila, karibu sana. We say that we are now going to give you a new name. It is Sheila.
Nĩndamageithia rĩngĩ nĩndĩrakena mũno wera mbere na mbeca
Mahuko.
Mafuto
Ona si mafuto no
na mahuko. Nĩndĩrauga nĩ wega mũno. We have one more video that we'd like to share with you, and then after that tutaomba sasa maybe a closing prayer,
yes,
so that we can dismiss everyone. Please let me know nani atatuombea. National anthem. Do we do a prayer as well? It's a prayer on its own. Tutaimba our national anthem, and then we can all go home and get ready for the good work that will be done on the 9th of August. Murakena muno pio. Nani anadirakena muno pio. Haya. Let's watch one video and then close with the national anthem.
Miaka ĩrĩ mĩhĩtũku kuma rĩrĩa gavana wa Kiambu James Nyoro etithirio ta gavana wa gatatũ wa Kiambu, ũmũthĩ thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya siasa kando fite na kando tũrahumbũra matũra-inĩ ma Kiambu County tũkĩmũrĩkaga tabarĩra cia ũthii wa na mbere iria cirehetwo nĩ thirikari ya Nyoro. nĩ ũndũ wa kũmekĩrĩra matawa ma sora, makiuga nĩ kũrĩ na nduma nene na ĩrĩa ĩratũmĩte ũkora ũkorwo wĩ igũrũ mũno, na makaingaga biacara ciao tene gũtanagĩa nduma.
Marĩtwa makwa njĩtagwo Mĩrĩ wa Irimũ, ndĩ mũikari wa Gĩthũrai.
Indo ici ciakĩtwo na moko ma andũ, no twagĩthiĩ na mbere na ũkĩra Ngai. Githĩ ndarĩ o gĩtĩ-inĩ na tũrauga no wĩra kĩ nake Nyoro? Asante sana. Nĩ njũĩ ngwĩciria nginyanagia na hau tũkorwo tũkĩina rwĩmbo rwa taifa. Sheila,
Tũrũgame, please, tafadhali.
asante sana. Ngai wa muoyo mũrathime na mwende mũno 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 mũno. Twagĩthiĩ na mbere na ũkĩmũririkania atĩ o mwaumĩrana na kũu nja ũmwe akarehe igana, atano makarehe igana. Tuthiĩ ũguo tuthiĩte twarĩte. Asante sana Governor. God bless you and we thank you. Good night and God bless. Sheila, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a wonderful pleasure. Good night and God bless. Thank you, Kiambu. Godspeed and all the best.
Samueli Ngai wa Isiraeli ndorera thĩna wakwa ona ndanyamario kana thĩnĩkanio Ngai wa Isiraeli ndorera thĩna wakwa ngateo nĩ mũthuri na andũ ao mamene Ngai wa Isiraeli ndorera thĩna wakwa ingĩaga kũrĩa kana gĩa kwĩhumba Ngai wa Isiraeli ndorera thĩna wakwa ingĩgĩa mbeca nyingĩ kana njage mbeca Ngai wa Isiraeli ndorera thĩna wakwa ihoya ngũhoya mũthenya wa ũmũthĩ Ngai wa Isiraeli ndorera thĩna wakwa Ngai nengereria kĩrathimo gĩakwa ndorera thĩna wakwa ũkirie maithori ruo rũrũ ndĩnaruo nĩnjũĩ mũthenya ũmwe ĩno yũndĩrania ngaheaga andũ ta karũgano maka